All right, good evening, everyone. Rick said he's got us on here, so appreciate that. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Montclair and is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live on the Montclair TV 34 YouTube channel. It's available on demand and will be rebroadcast. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. This meeting was included in the annual notice of the meeting schedule set forth in Resolution R-21-210, adopted by the Council at its conference meeting of November 15, 2021, advertised in the official newspaper on December 30th, 2021, and January 6, 2022. Posted on the bulletin boards outside of the municipal building and has remained continuously posted there. In addition, a copy of the annual notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the Township Clerk. With that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councillor Cummings?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
Present.
Councillor Price Abrams?
Present.
Councillor Russo?
Present.
Councillor Schlager?
Here.
Councillor Yacobelis?
Present.
Mayor Spiller?
Present. Thank you very much. Without objection, we've got the agenda with flexibility. Next, we'll do some of our proclamations. First proclamation is recognizing May as Jewish Heritage Month. Councilwoman Price Abrams, would you please?
Thank you, Mayor. This is recognizing May, again, as Jewish Heritage Month. Whereas the first Jewish immigrants arrived on American soil in 1654, escaping oppression and discrimination, their presence, along with that of so many other immigrant groups, helped define America's promise of religious freedom while embracing democracy, individual liberty, and opportunity for all. And whereas the Jewish American experience is a quintessential American experience, one that is connected to the key tenets of American identity, including our nation's commitment to freedom of religion and conscience, and whereas notwithstanding this promise, we are still working to realize full vision of the American ideal, amid the scourges of racism, bigotry, and other forms of injustice is included a stubborn anti-Semitism. In recent years, Jewish Americans have increasingly been the target of white nationalism and the anti-Semitic violence it fuels, as well as that of other hate groups. And in 2021, a record number of anti-Semitic incidents occurred in the state of New Jersey, according to the latest annual audit released by the Anti-Defamation League, using information from victims and law enforcement. And whereas the Jewish community has consistently overcome challenges and adversity, remaining deeply and robustly engaged on internal matters as well as on issues facing society at large, to wit, Jewish Americans have played major roles in all aspects of society and have worked tirelessly for social justice and equal rights, often motivated by Jewish values to heal the world, locally, nationally, and globally. Jewish Americans have made significant contributions in the areas of science, the arts, literature, civic life, and law. And whereas this is true here in Montclair, where we're enriched to have two in-town synagogues, B'nai Keshet and Congregation Shomrei Emunah, as well as Chabad of Montclair, and two others as neighbors, Temple Ner Tamid and Temple Shalom, all of which serve Montclair residents and engender in their congregants a sense of spirituality and an engagement with their history and heritage to perpetuate the values of Torah. The commitments are routinely expressed by enriching the community through interethnic and interfaith collaboration and participation in initiatives to create a more just society. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the Township of Montclair do hereby celebrate and recognize the contributions of the Jewish community and Jewish Americans, both in Montclair and in the wider world, and do proclaim May as Jewish Heritage Month in the Township of Montclair. Before I move, I did want to actually just acknowledge Rabbi David Greenstein, who is served Congregation Shomrei Emunah for, I think, about 13 years. He will be retiring at the end of, I think, the summer or so in June, and I wanted to use this moment to acknowledge his contribution to the community as well. And with that, I thank you and
Excellent.
appreciate the opportunity.
I officially so move without objection. Hearing no objection. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Councilwoman. Next, and certainly we know we usually, as we move back to our in-person meetings too, if there's anyone here to accept any of these proclamations, we're happy to have you at the podium and read these, of course. And certainly also we know that many of these we will present more formally when we interface with groups and others who we're presenting these proclamations with. So we will, for example, as you see a lot of the Eagle Scouts and those being recognized, we will move those but then present them when we engage in their ceremony. So with that, next we do have a proclamation recognizing May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and certainly this is one that will be given to the organizers of the Lantern Festival on Friday, and we certainly look forward to that. But certainly it recognizes May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, whereas Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month originated in a congressional bill in June 1977, and on March 28, 1979, President Carter issued the Presidential Proclamation proclaiming the week beginning May 4th, 1979 as Asian Pacific American Heritage Week. Since then, it has expanded to a month-long celebration. And certainly, whereas throughout New Jersey, people are celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month by sponsoring a variety of cultural events, certainly here in Montclair as well. We certainly, at the Township and the Council and Mayor of Montclair, do hereby proclaim May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the Township of Montclair, and without objection. And thank you so much. And we will present that again on Friday. We also have another proclamation, which is recognizing June as Pride Month. Councilman Yacobelis.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll be brief as well. Simplify this in a couple statements. One, for the first time ever, we've received a 100% score on the Municipal Equality Index from Montclair, which is a really big deal. Two, for the first time ever, we're going to have a major Pride Festival in the town, which we're really, really excited about. And I will just read the last paragraph to keep it simple. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the Township of Montclair do hereby proclaim June as LGBTQ+ Pride Month in the Township of Montclair. We urge all people of Montclair to join LGBTQ advocacy and actions, promote diversity and inclusion, create welcoming and affirming spaces for LGBTQ+ youth, trans, and non-binary folks, persons of color, and be visible, outspoken allies and upstanders, as any injustice against one is an injustice against all. And I so move.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Councilman. And certainly, as we move through the activities and number of things planned, we've got the proclamation to offer and present there as well. Next, we have a proclamation declaring June 21st Montclair Make Music Day. Would you like to just speak to that briefly? And we've got, excellent. So would you mind going down and we'll read that one? Thank you. I'll ask Councilman Russo to go to the podium and help make Music Day.
Make Music Day. Whereas Make Music Day is an annual event held on the first day of summer inspired by France's Fête de la Musique, or Make Music Festival. It is now an international celebration that takes place in more than 1,000 cities in 120 countries across the globe. This year will mark the 40th anniversary of the first Fête de la Musique. I took 1 year French at Rutgers. Whereas celebrating for the 9th consecutive year, Montclair will be one more than 100 cities across the United States taking part in Make Music Day on summer solstice, June 21st. This year's celebration will include Make Music Day events starting on June 18th with Terry Serendipity Cafe Festival Underground and concluding with our own town-wide Make Music Day celebration on June 21st. Whereas Montclair's Make Music Days are organized by a committee of volunteer organizers, musicians, small businesses, students, and residents through the local arts organization, Indie Arts Montclair, IAM. The goal is to continue providing a great opportunity for Montclair area residents to perform and enjoy music. Now, therefore, by virtue of this proclamation, the Mayor, the Council of the Township of Montclair do hereby declare June 21st to be Montclair Make Music Day and encourage people of all ages and abilities to responsibly gather to celebrate in parks, storefronts, public spaces to celebrate the ability to make music. Signed by the Mayor and the Council, presented to you with the seal of the Town Clerk. Okay? You can speak and tell us all about what you're going to do.
For those here, thanks. Here's the sign. We've got our messaging. Thanks again to the council for the 9th year we're doing this. It started out in 2014 after I was doing this in New York, and it's really grown. I appreciate the support of Parks, Rec, and Cultural Affairs on this. We always get permits for parks, and we are also celebrating the 40th anniversary, as Bob better pronounced, Fête de Musique. Fête de Musique. I'm not even close. But this music brings people together, and I think at this moment in our history, especially with what's going on, this is an incredible opportunity for the entire town to come together and celebrate. So thank you for the council, and everybody come out and make music.
I know we have thoroughly enjoyed it every year and appreciate it. I think the only request is next year you're going to have to sing at the podium if it's music, so, but thank you. Appreciate that. Next, we have a number of proclamations congratulating some of our Eagle Scouts, and I'm not sure if anyone is here to receive those. If not, Mr. Deputy Mayor, would you want to just read their names? And then, of course, I know you're going to an event to present some of these as well, so, and I believe this, you want to pass that down.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, if I could get those. Appreciate that. That's no problem at all. These are, as the mayor indicated, these are a series of proclamations. This is the season, which is a great time of the year for our Eagle Scout ceremony that we've been a privilege to be a part of for some of us quite some time now. So I just want to read off the names here. We have a proclamation congratulating Eagle Scout Alex Parada, Eagle Scout Denzel LeBlanc, Eagle Scout Max Ferranti, Eagle Scout Kai Hellman, Eagle Scout Justin Kingsnorth, and Eagle Scout Christian Uva. If anyone's here, let us know. If not, we will present these at the ceremonies coming up in the next week. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And to my colleagues, I think we want to sign them all again. There's ones on the inside with the ribbon that we've got to do. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just noticed that myself. So, do it again. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. With that, I will open it up for public comment. All speakers must complete the sign-in sheet, so please do so when you come up next to the podium before addressing the council. Please limit your comment to 3 minutes. If you wish to comment on a pending ordinance listed on this evening's agenda, please make your comment during the public hearing for that ordinance. I'll now open public comment. So far, so good. Just name, address, and please. And then please fill out when you leave it.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay.
My name is Anthony DeLella. I've lived in town since 1975. In 1986, I purchased two-family homes. In all of those years, I don't believe I raised the rents more than 2% per year. Now, my tenants usually stay for a period of maybe 6 years or more. Many of them stay a lot longer than that. Some of them, very few of them, stay less than that. I have a very good relationship with my tenants, and I believe that the rent control ordinance is going to interfere with that relationship. Now, what I would do after the tenants leave and there was a vacancy, I would try and bring my rents to a market rate. Now, in most of the cases, that would only mean bringing up the rents a few $100s more than what I was actually charging the former renters. There are several provisions in the ordinance which I have issues with, but they're too lengthy to go into. So I'm going to pick out this most simple one, and that's the one of publication of the rents. With human nature, people will come in, rent your apartment, and they will be very satisfied. But human nature, knowing that these information is on the internet, will probably go and come up with reasons that, no, this rent is lower than mine. And even though they may not say anything, and I still may have some kind of good relationship with them, I think it'll cause some type of hostility. Now, there are other reasons that I believe that the ordinance was not passed correctly or could have been done differently. The first one I call the due process argument, or basically you can't change the rules in the middle of the game. What happened was the original ordinance exempt the 2, 3, and 4 family homes. Then two parties, none of which represented us, got together, backroom type of organization, and came up with a settlement. The town adopted these for political expediency. Now, these two parties, like I said, did not represent me. What is going to excuse me, what is going to happen is that you are penalizing all of these 2- and 3-family owned apartments, basically for a few of the bad actors. And we actually don't know how many bad actors there are in that 2, 3, and 4 group. There's no statistics on it. So I think we are unfairly penalized as a result of this. As I said, you can't change the rules in the middle of the game. As to the issue of unconscionable rent increases, there is a anti-eviction statute in the state. It's 2A 18-6-1F. This allows a tenant to file suit in court indicating that there is an unreasonable rent increases. And the judge will decide basically whether it's unjustifiable or not. What the town could have done is use this statute, set up a department so that the tenants could go in and say this is unreasonable. Then the department could have gotten in touch with the landlords, negotiated, mediated some kind of resolution. If not, assist the tenant in having them file suit. If landlords knew that suits were being filed, they would think twice about basically raising the rents in an unjustifiable manner. As I said, I believe that you're penalizing all of the 2- and 3-family owned apartments for the few that are unjust, and there's no statistics for it. The other issue I have is the gentrification issue. This may be a stretch, but I think it actually has some relevancy.
May I just point out, forgive me for interrupting, but you may not have been able to see that that your time has expired.
I have 1 minute.
That's not up to me.
Real
Of course,
quick,
try to be fair with everybody, so,
Okay.
but please, try and conclude your comments.
real
Thank you.
quickly.
Thank-
The town approved 800 units without actually requiring more units that were for fair housing. What this does is put competition on the 2- and 3-family owned apartments because they're brand new. You know how much it is to update your apartment for bathrooms, kitchens, and so forth? They're not going to have the money to do that. And what's going to happen is they're not going to be able to maintain their residents because they have lower rents. And that's how you're going to achieve gentrification, by these 2, 3, and 4 family-owned places having to charge rents that are below market. I submit to you that the original ordinance was correct. It exempted the 2, 3, and 4 family homes, and the reasons why you did that still exist today. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Mr. Scantlebury, just so that residents know, and certainly we know too, is there a sound that this thing makes when the time is coming to
Mr. Mayor, I'm working on that.
Oh.
There is a sound.
Okay. Okay, malfunction. Okay, thank you.
I was afraid it would be like an NBA klaxon, time's up. Good evening, everybody. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you. I'm Norm Solomon. I live at 192 Claremont. I've been a resident of Montclair for about 15 months, but a lifelong New Jersey person. I think you know, or you may remember, I represent the League of Women Voters, the Environmental Issues Committee. We call it now, just for our trade name, it's LWV ECO, but that's for paperwork. Since January, there's been a significant uptake in the activity of that committee in the League of Women Voters. So we have 6 pillars of activity that have been mentioned to you variously. We show up here every once in a while. One of those, and probably the first truly active one, is the one that works in conjunction with and for the benefit of Eagle Rock Reservation. Our first activity with that committee was on April 23rd when we did a cleanup. You may have seen the press about it. We got a very nice press response. A couple of our councilmen showed up at that event, and we appreciate that. May we got rained out. That's what happens when you're outside in the woods. But the support that we got from those first 2 events supported the idea to roll out the entire process. So at this point in my professional life, I would have said, Your Honor, may I approach? But if I can hand this to the attorney, if you can pass. The LWV ECO will be sponsoring an event for each of the subsequent months, starting with June, and running through October. Each of them has a different theme. Each of them will occur on a Saturday, and all of them are in support of the Eagle Rock Reservation. We're going to be doing things such as removing invasive plants, rerouting streams and walkways, making repairs and whatever. And the goal of this is to make it a fun activity for families to come out and enjoy an afternoon in the park. So we thank you for listening. We'd love to see one of you out there for one of these events. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mayor, I'd just like to ask, I'm not going to ask, I'm just going to say, I feel very much like the league has not really been visible in the environmental area like you've brought forth, Norm. So I want to thank you because you've got a lot of activity. This is great. You're here. You know, we want you to continue to advise and participate. But we also have our environmental commission, which we hope you'll work closely with because they're our advisory and they're a commission that we created and appointed. But thank you for getting the league so involved.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
You know me, I know you. I'm actually part of, I guess, the government of Montclair being on the planning board for about 6 years. I'm also the owner of a 3-family property that I live in. I bought the property when my mother was not doing so well, and she lived on the first floor, and I lived on the second, took care of her. I'm a 35-year resident of Montclair, so I really know what goes on in the town. I'm here to talk about, as you can guess, the new rent control ordinance. I kind of represent a group of interested parties. We call ourselves No Rent Control for Little Guys. And I also am talking on behalf of 200 people who signed a petition against this rent control ordinance as it applies to 2-, 3-, and 4-family houses. We don't object to the rent control ordinance in general, just as it applies to 2- and 3-family and 4-family houses. I've written to you, you know the issues that I've brought up. I don't want to beat a dead horse and keep talking about it endlessly because I think I've really given every point of that I've wanted to make. So you know our concerns, the group's concerns. But tonight I did want to present to you and make part of the record. So I'll approach the bench, so to speak, again. And I wrote up a document that really expresses our concerns about the rent control, once again, as it applies to small properties in town. So really, we're looking for a compromise. Our group would like you to go back to the original ordinance that excluded 2- and 3-family homes from rent control. I know it did include 4 families, but we'd like to also see it exclude 4 families. I don't know how it came about that all of a sudden, you know, 2- and 3-family houses were included in the new revised rent control. So I'm just trying to appeal to you for a compromise to exempt these smaller properties from the rent control ordinance. Most of the 2-family and 3-family and 4-family properties are owned by residents of Montclair, and some of the residents live there. Some of them, as Tony mentioned, own properties for investment purposes. So we are the backbone of the town. We are the owners of properties in town, and we hope that you'll consider this compromise in your discussions as you continue to look at rent control. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Mack. I live at 230 Park Street, and I have lived in Montclair for close to 35 years. I have been a renter for over 20 years, and always sorry. Susan Mack. I live at 230 Park Street. Oh, much better. And I've lived in Montclair for over 34 years. I've always lived in a 2-family home the entire time. I rented for over 20 years, and then I own a home, and I've been there for 12, 13 years. I also looked for a house to purchase a 2-family home for 3 years, and I saw many, many homes as potential purchases, and with lots of different tenants. And I have to tell you, hands down, anecdotally, my entire experience has been there has not been any gouging of rents in a 2-3 family home in Montclair.
I'm very, very disappointed in our township for how this went down. I think that we should have better business practices. We are all very sophisticated, educated folks in this room, and we should be doing it. We should be identifying the problem, looking into it, doing the data, the analysis, and then finding a solution that really solves the problem instead of trying to throw things, as has happened before for this township. I've lived here almost 35 years, and I'm very, very disappointed in our township for that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is William Scott. I'm the co-chair of the Montclair Housing Commission. I'm also the chair of the NAACP Housing Committee. I've held those positions between 10 and 15 years. I'm also a 72-year resident of the Township of Montclair, born and raised here, 4 generations. I currently own my multifamily home in Montclair, which has been in our family for 75 years. And I am a definite supporter of the rent control ordinance. I worked very hard with several stakeholders to put the current rent control ordinance in place that does include 2- and 3-family homes. Being a 2-family home owner, I have 2 buildings, matter of fact, at that point. I was always in support of the 2-family units being included. I think that's really unfortunate that, we continue to beat this dead horse. We have an ordinance. It's implemented. My question I have to the council tonight is, when will the registration process take place? I think that that's going to really bring this ordinance into the beginning process from an implementation standpoint. Tenants and landlords need to start that process. Tenants are receiving increases based on misinformation. Landlords are providing misinformation. Unconscionable rent increases are continuing within the Township of Montclair. And I think that we need to be very transparent and clear that we're going to implement this ordinance. If there's a time and place to come back to the table and negotiate changes to the ordinance, that's up to the council. There's no doubt about that. We have an open process, and I think that that's something we can look forward to. But to continue to say that people were misinformed is a gross misstatement. I've provided data to some of the opposition of the rent control ordinance. The thing that's really shocking to me is the fact that they would overlook between close to 2,200 residents of Montclair are paying between 35 and 40% of their income towards rent. And that number continues to go up every year. So, this thing about they're being reasonable. If there's landlords out there that want to continue to raise their rents at 2%, 3%, that option has not been taken off the table. They can still do that. The problem is they have to register their units and move forward. So I think that that's something I think we really need to understand. Before my time is up, I think we should have really taken the time out and recognized the 10 African Americans that were murdered in Buffalo, New York this past weekend. A terrorist attack. And I think that we should give a moment of silence to those members before this council moves forward on any additional business. Thank you.
Thank you. And twofold. First, Mr. Burr, you want to answer the question about implementation? And then we'll again, plan on later, but we'll do a moment of silence now. But after answer his question about the
I'm
implementation.
going to pass that to my colleague, Mr. Scantlebury, to answer that question.
The implementation will be coming in a couple of days. Now, tomorrow, you should see the ordinance on the website, the fact sheet on the website, the exemptions on the website, and the registration form. We've made the registration form as easy as we possibly can, where it could be filled out online, it could be downloaded and brought in 205. We're making the fee payment as easy as possible, again, with allowing card payment along with check payments. So we're ramping this department up, and you should start seeing the forms on the website and information on all the platforms we have starting tomorrow.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Price Abrams.
if I may ask a related follow-up question, either for Mr. Scantlebury or Mr. Burr, is there interim guidance? You know, we're standing up some new infrastructure, and as we know, there are people who are getting beyond the increases that we believe, or, you know, we're hearing anecdotally, and I'm sure many of us are hearing from different parties. So not for any of us to figure out necessarily, we need someone who might be giving the interim guidance pending something more complete. And so is the guidance sign a lease and pay it, and then we'll rectify it later with you? I mean, as process
What
steps
will
up?
help is the fact sheet and the exemption sheet of the critical information on the ordinances going on the website. That's going to answer most of the questions you may have. If there's an additional question or something that's not being addressed, you can email rentcontrol@montclairnjusa.org. Let me repeat that. rentcontrol@montclairnjusa.org. If there's any specific questions that you may have, and we will get back to you as soon as humanly possible.
And as Mr. Scott noted before going, I know many of my colleagues had asked to say something during their remarks about this, but we may as well speak to it now. Certainly, we're all, deeply saddened by the horrific events in Buffalo. I know that I share that with all my colleagues and certainly everyone in this room. It is something, I think, that as we all talk about the issues and we try to grapple with conversations around race and what that means in this country, it's just a stark reminder for some individuals, people of color, just to be targeted in that way. It's an experience that, some people will never fully be able to understand, but can certainly, I think, empathize with and certainly be allies in the support of those who do face that reality every day. But we certainly as a community stand together, certainly as a council speak as one to say we certainly condemn those actions, and we stand with all people who try to make this place, this world, a more just society and to right the wrongs that we still see today. But with that, we will have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could add something, I just want to say something. I'd like to cut right to the chase. This kid that did this, 18-year-old white kid, okay, from a town that has all kinds of Trump signs all over the lawns, okay? This kid is endemic of a lot of high school young people and even people going into college that I deal with teaching. One of my students said, we have guns in Texas, so everybody has a gun, and it's good that everybody has a gun because nobody will shoot each other. A young woman in my class said that. So I'm very concerned that we stop this stuff, that young people, not talking about the past generations, like my grandfather hated Irish people, he ripped up my Kennedy sign, I first experienced prejudice with that. That was hatred by an Italian towards Irish. Then I experienced all the hate towards me and my family when we supported Gibson for mayor in Newark against an Italian, corrupt, indicted mayor. I said, I'm going for the black candidate who's honest, young, and very, very intelligent, rather than the old, I'm not going to say bald, but the old, bald Italian guy who was indicted, okay? And I got nothing but rocks thrown at our house, eggs thrown at our house, N-word thrown at us, but I did it in 1970 with my family in Newark. This prejudice is so ingrained. It's so horrible. This kid that did this, and so many others that we saw just before this, to the Asian community, to the Latino community, to the gay community, they're saying they're being replaced. You understand what's going on? You watch Rachel Maddow last night, you'll see the history of all these incidents. It is horrific. And these are the same young white guys coming out of high school with families that are either teaching them this or they're seeing it all on the internet. So you got to take some kind of national action. People say we don't talk about this because it's national. The national level, starting with what happened a few years ago under a president who condoned this stuff. And they're still condoning this stuff. And I'm going to say it. The Republican Party leadership needs to stand up and stop this stuff, because they're the ones that are condoning and with Fox News saying it's okay. We cannot see this end unless these media outlets and this political party, which was a great political party under Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt and Eisenhower. I wrote about this. I teach about this. A great political party been destroyed by the Trumpites and the people who spew this hate about, we're trying to replace us. The whites would be, I'm a old white Italian guy, okay? So I'm being replaced. Fine. My Italian ancestors were hated by certain people when they came over here, hated. So I'm an Italian American who doesn't follow the Mussolini, strongman, Putin, Trump philosophy. I want us to end this by teaching our students in the high school, Montclair High School included, that this hatred and talking about replacement theory and being against talking about critical race theory or the real history of this country, this has got to stop. And it starts with Fox News, the Republican Party leadership, Trump, all these people. I just cannot be nice about this, okay? Because every time it happens, we say, gee, we're sorry, it's terrible, we're going to do something about it. We don't do anything because the NRA controls the Congress, money controls politics, the billionaire class, as Bernie Sanders says, controls the media, and we can't get anything done. So starting right here in Montclair, we've got to say to the young people, I'm talking about teenage, high school, young people, okay? Let's stop it. And I'm talking specifically to young white men who keep doing this, okay? That's who keeps doing this, reading it on the internet, that Hitler was good. See, that's what they read. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, my name is Charlie Swanson.
Excuse me, Charlie, real quick, thank you, Mr. Scott, for bringing that up and making sure that we did that.
David, my reason for coming up to the podium so quick is because I wanted to acknowledge what that man said. All right, and Bob, you know as well as I know, we've been fighting this fight for a long time. It started when Christopher Green walked into the post office, shot 5 times, snuffed out 4 lives, all for what, a couple of grand? What happened? The community came together, all right? And in that coming together, the community created Terry's Serendipity Cafe, right? And what did we do? We united this community, all colors, all ages, all right? And we did it, and it's still going on. And the member that kept doing it after I burned out is right here, Ed Kareen. And what we need now is another adult. All right, but I want to have another moment of silence because I got interracial grandkids, and I've been fighting this as an artist, and I've had the prison industrial complex panels I did back in the day in the Hall of Justice in Rutgers, all right? And I was invited to put it there. So you know the work that I've done on this, and I couldn't agree with you more. So I would like to say one thing about silence. I'm a Buddhist Catholic. It breaks my heart every time I hear this stuff. And I did a piece in 2005 at Montclair State called Hip Hop Construction. And it was about butter and about other young kids that I knew and my sons knew that grew up. And I grew up fixing their bikes as little kids in the neighborhoods where I was working. Right? And I'd go to their funerals because of some of the things that you're talking about and whatever. But we're not talking about my history here tonight, but I do want to acknowledge what that man got up and said before me, and I rushed to the podium because I wanted to second what he was saying. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for recognizing that. And Bob, I couldn't agree with you more.
We know, Charlie.
I am happy to be here tonight in person after these 2 long years of what we've all been through, all right? So I'd like to start my 3 minutes. I am upset, not about what I'm about to read. Good evening, my name is Charlie Swanson. I live at 90 Midland Avenue, Montclair. I'm a 76-year-old senior citizen. I would like to acknowledge and I appreciate all the time, hard work, and effort that was invested by all the parties in the rent control ordinance. I may not agree with you, but you put a lot of time and effort into it in a difficult time during the pandemic. I'm happy to be here to be heard in person. I've worked and lived in Montclair since 1973. I own 2 multifamily homes in the 2nd and 4th wards. I live in a multifamily home that I own and occupy with my tenants. They are like my family. I have not raised rents. My rents are way below market rates. I believe that including my properties under the rent control law will cause my property to lose value. I'm not getting any younger, and I want my family to benefit from my sweat equity and financial investments I made in my properties when I lost my job and had lost my retirement. This is my only retirement. My property, my equities that I have. I've treated all my tenants very fairly. And we have laws that are on both sides that we can go to, all right? I believe including the properties will cause, I lost my place. Sorry. This is my only retirement plan. I no longer am working, and I count on the income from my properties to help pay my living expenses. What analysis did you do to arrive at 4% annual rent increase? The cost for utilities, gas, heat, water, sewer, maintenance, lawn, snow removal, and insurances are all seeing increases over 4%. The country is experiencing an 8% inflation. The town is talking about a 2% municipal tax increase, but what will the school tax be if the bond referendum is passed? What will the county tax be? This 4% is not tied to any of those increases. Anyone who wants to buy a multifamily house in the area will probably opt to purchase a home in one of the 6 towns neighboring Montclair that doesn't impose rent control on 2, 3, and 4 families. I came here and I gave up ever living in a one-family house to raise my kids in this community, knowing I'd have to do it in a multifamily, and I'm proud of that. The regulations under the rent control law are very burdensome and costly. Understanding what I need to do, paying fees to register my property, late fees if I miss that deadline, paying appeal fees, paying fees I need to apply for rent increases beyond 4%, risking a $2,000 fine, imprisonment? What am I, a criminal? If I violate the ordinance, I understand that one of my units is vacant. I must pay now $250 to register my rent with the new tenant? That seems unfair. Please continue to think about how this rent control will adversely impact the small property owner. And then please, I plead with you, amend the ordinance to exclude such properties. Mr. Russo, you cited Neptune as a model ordinance. Neptune does not impose rent control on 2, 3, or 4 family homes. Let's follow that example in surrounding towns as well. Also, please have consideration for the seniors that are the owners of these small investments and our only retirements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. John Groves. I live at 39 Harvard Street currently, but I also own a 2-family in the South End. I'm a lifelong resident. Clearly, I'm invested in the community. When I moved out of that 2-family, I could have gone anywhere, but I stayed here. Just to add a couple of data points to this discussion, that in my 2-family, the rent in one floor hasn't increased since 2016. The rent in the other floor has gone up $200 since 2015. I'll do the math for you. That's $25 a year. I can guarantee you the cost that I pay has gone up a lot more than $25 a year. I'm shouldering this burden. I'm not in this to make money. Clearly, I'm not rich. I have 2 jobs myself. This house is not a get-rich-quick scheme for me. This rent control ordinance is going to put an undue burden on me. I don't have the ability to do this office work to keep this together. I mean, besides being unsupported by any data or statistics, which you all know, it's going to create a huge burden on us, small property owners, regardless of whether I live there or not. I'm still part of this community. And I really wish you would consider the 2, 3, 4 families as part of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tony Martin. I'm with the Tenants Organization of Montclair, and I'm one of those who worked really hard to find an ordinance that would be fair to everyone. So it's not fair to everyone. Nothing can be perfectly fair to everyone, not in a situation like this. What the ordinance is trying to do is make some headway in the realm of tenant rights, which have been non-existent really until now, and also to stand as a bulwark against the very rapid rise in rents generally. We had to work with existing state law exempting newer buildings, as you know. We fought at the end, when it became possible to fight, for including more tenants in the smaller buildings. I am the child of a landlord. I've lived in a lot of apartments. I've been in Montclair for a quarter of a century, dwarfed by some of these other people in terms of longevity. But I do not accept that rent control means inevitable decline in property value. Why do I want to live in Montclair? Why will I invest in Montclair if I ever get my money together again? I have been a homeowner. I'm not now. The reason is because of what it is, how we treat each other, the feeling I get walking down the street. It's not because we have rent control or not. It's about this community. And I think that preserving our diversity by establishing some rent control, by establishing this rent control in particular, which we've already done, by the way, is why people will want to live here. It's a good community and well-run and protects everybody. Secondly, on implementation, it really, I'm so glad to hear the steps you're taking, but the questions abound every day. The way we're going to interpret the law, for example, 2 big buildings just sold right here on either side of you, 47 North Fullerton and 10 Roosevelt were owned by somebody for an entity for 25 years, and they sold with the prospect of rent control, I will say, in terms of those who worry about property value. So do they get 6% or 4% under the law? For example, that's just one question. I'm just saying there's so much that needs to be interpreted and people informed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Honorable Mayor, Town Council. Thank you for being here. Nice to see everybody in person. So I'm Karen DeCino. I work in information technology. I have a small property management business. I manage 2 properties, multifamily, and I live in one of them. So I read somewhere that Home Corps has provided us with about 78 homes in Montclair that are affordable housing. The 2, 3, and 4 family home situations provide a lot more than that. Maybe, we don't really know, actually. We don't know how many housing units are available, but it's probably at least 15 times more than the 78, at least. So I'm not criticizing Home Corps. This is not meant to criticize Home Corps and the good work that they've done. But I'm trying to point out that the value of 2, 3, and 4 family home owners and landlords is to provide a tremendous amount of affordable housing. So people who want to live in Montclair but they can't afford to buy a home here, they live in our properties. That provides diversity. So by supporting 2, 3, and 4 family landlords, you're actually supporting affordable housing and diversity. So I would like to think about what the council is concerned about unaffordable rent, and everyone is. That's why we have passed this rent control law. So what else can the council do to address the fact of unaffordable housing? Well, they can choose to support 2, 3, and 4 family homeowners. And how can they choose to support? What can they do to support 2, 3, and 4 family homeowners? So I have some ideas. So one is protect our property values, remove us from the ordinance. Another is reduce bureaucracy, remove us from the ordinance. Reduce bureaucracy, remove the requirement to file every lease for every tenant every year. That's a big amount of work. Provide assistance navigating the complex details of this new law. Offer tax breaks for providing housing assistance, please. We provide affordable housing, maybe we're entitled to a tax break. Okay, well, in the end, I guess if you support 2, 3, and 4 family houses, you'll consider amending the ordinance to remove them or not include them in the ordinance and take a step for affordable housing and diversity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no one else moving to the microphone,
Hello, is this on? Okay. Sorry. Did I turn it off? Oh, shoot. Okay. Oh, thank you. Great, thank you. Good evening. My name is Lonnie Summer Padilla, and I have been a resident of Montclair since 2018. I am here tonight to urge the council to permit public comments to be made virtually. While I am excited that the council meetings are being held in person and things have generally been gradually resuming to normal, there are some ways of doing things that were implemented due to the pandemic that I believe would be beneficial if allowed to remain in place. Allowing public comment to be made virtually affords our community at large the opportunity to engage with the town council in circumstances where it may not otherwise be possible. Montclair is a town with a very diverse population, and there are a variety of reasons as to why some may not be able to attend council meetings in person, whether it be due to health issues, parental duties, or work schedules, or other reasons that I haven't thought of. Montclair can only benefit from a more engaged constituency, transparency, and accessibility. Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joel Katz. I'm a, oh, yes, that's on. Montclair resident, have children in the school district. I've lived here about 9 years. I work with the group called Quiet Montclair that's concerned with environmental issues. And we have heard, I'm not 100% sure that this information is correct, but we've heard the town now has $29,000 of appropriated funds to purchase lawn maintenance equipment. And I just would like to urge the town council and the mayor to use as much as possible electric-powered equipment. I'm sure you've all heard the many statistics and stories One of them, published by Edmunds, the very respected automotive magazine, that running a gas-powered leaf blower for 1 hour is the equivalent of driving a Ford pickup truck for over 1,000 miles. There also is information about the sound damage that it can cause both to the workers and residents, the way gas-powered leaf blowers destroy microenvironments where pollinators grow. I mean, I'm sure you've heard much of this information before, but I really hope the town will set an example for landscaping companies and surrounding townships and move towards electric. It's the way the world is going anyhow, and we should be taking a step forward in this direction. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to respond to Joel for a second. I just keep bringing this up all the time, that there are electric equipment companies that are producing very good equipment, and that we should definitely transition to purchasing them. I know we can't do it all the time, like with a police car that needs the strength and energy, but we talked last week or two about that, and it was pointed out that they're moving. I mean, this is the direction, like you said. You see on TV nothing but electric cars being advertised. All electric. It's going to be all electric eventually. Now, that's not the ultimate solution. Environmentally, people are telling me that's not really that good. Electric, what are you going to do with the batteries? But with these leaf blowers, I had to stop a whole group of them on the lawns, the large lawns of the buildings I live in, because they were still using gas-powered. And they could change to electric, which is quieter, less polluting, but we still have the problem of pollution, So I think you're right, and I want to tell you that I keep asking. I'm just going to ask the manager now. I don't know if Mr. Katz is right. He says there's 29,000. Do we have purchasing of these leaf blowers for our own staff? Because for us to tell everybody else they can't use them and then we use them, it's kind of hypocritical, So what are we doing on that?
We use gas-fired equipment for the maintenance of our parks and public lands.
Yeah, I know we do, but can we transition from them to electric?
We can. However, there is nothing at present that exists that will allow us to do the job that we do at present with the gas-fired equipment. We have bought various electric pieces of equipment, and they have proved not appropriate or applicable.
So what we're saying is that because they're not strong enough, powerful enough, our staff can't do the good job. Okay. Sometimes I think we ought to just go back to rakes. We could just get a bunch of rakes and everybody just rake everything up. But, eventually they're going to be strong enough. They are transitioning. I hear Maplewood is buying. Maplewood is our partner town in this. They're buying the equipment as pieces of equipment have to be replaced. They're buying electric-powered equipment. I know what you're saying, Tim, and I appreciate this. But we have to set the example and move the staff in the direction of environmental sound policies that are good for the country and good for our town. I urge us to try to get new equipment as we can. There's some places that we could probably use less powerful equipment, I would think.
Mayor, I was going to ask if I may follow up on what Councilor Russo was just saying. So my further question is just that if, I've spoken with Peter Holm and right? Here's his last name. And anyway, if you have ideas of, if you're aware of such equipment, please be in touch with us. We're interested to learn more about it as technology continues to change, to address the questions that, the manager is citing as concerns and considerations. So we're trusting that you'll keep informing us as there may be technologies that we should review and consider. I'm Lori Price Abrams, and you may send it to me, and I think Councilor Russo would like to receive it as well.
Send it to the town manager. The town manager runs the government.
Yeah, if you want, just officially, and I saw a couple bringing documents, anything to be distributed to council can go to the clerk officially, and the clerk's charge is to distribute the information by law. But yeah, thank you. Councilman Yancopoulos?
Thank you. Just to add on as well, what I've said to Mr. Holm and Ms. Ellis, as well as just look across the country and find municipalities who are doing, or if they are, parks and fields, get us the brands and serial numbers. That's the best we can do. Brands and serial numbers, we'll look into it, and I think that's the best we can do. But I think the point is, and I understand this, if you are using electric and the battery doesn't last long enough, you have to stop and charge it, or you go through multiple batteries. So you have to have all that equipment, so it would take that much longer to actually clear out the parks and the field. So it really is about the capacity and the battery life. And to Councilor Russo's point, that technology does keep improving the same way electric cars do. But I have heard other places are starting to do this. I just don't know the size of their parks in comparison, or the size of their fields in comparison. So brand names and serial numbers would go a long way. Thank you.
Please.
My name is Pam Holland. I've been in Montclair for 23 years, about 23 years. I've lived in 2 apartments. The first one I was there 4 years. The first one I left, that was on Bay Street when the train was coming in. Rent was about to be skyrocket. I moved to where I am now. I've been there 19 years, I believe. Had a good relationship with my landlord up until, I would say, last May. And he brought someone in to assess the house. I also lost my job, and I got behind in my rent. And I had to go to the state, and the state paid my rent, thank God. I am working. I've gotten this letter, and in, I believe, December, an increase from my landlord. I didn't know that Montclair had a moratorium. I had an increase a year and a half ago. I didn't know, and I paid it. When I was told, and also one of the other tenants, that they were going to increase, he said, no, there's a moratorium. So we didn't pay it, and that was under duress from them. Then I get this letter. It was going to go up. The first one, $1,550 is what he wants now. I pay $1,400, and that is with the increase that I got during the moratorium. Now he wants $1,550 and another $500 for security. There was a time in 2015 I had lost my job. I got behind in my rent, but Dan and I both worked it out, and I paid him. They're telling me I still owe them money. By June 1st, they want $1,550 plus $500 from me. And they understand in the letter that I can't afford this and that I should come to the town so they could help me find a place to live. So I need to know what to do. I understand your situations. My father was a homeowner. I think he barely ever went up. He was happy to have people there to take care of his home and not destroy his home. He went up when he had to. My landlord, my street, there's a house that's been sitting empty that sold for $625,000. Those are the kind of rents that are going on in my neighborhood. I can't afford. I'm a cake decorator. I've been here for 23 years. My son went to school here, from kindergarten through Montclair High School. And now I'm forced to leave. I need to know this rent control needs to be in place. There are some of us who are hardworking people that have been here and have contributed. And now we're being thrown out in the street. This is very important.
Mayor, can I ask Ms. Holland, did you join, or do you know the TOOM organization, the tenants organization of Montclair? That
I didn't know.
You don't know?
I know now.
You know Tony Martin sitting right behind you here who spoke, okay? Tony, get involved with them and get them to give you some advice. But then as far as implementation, Deputy Manager Mr. Scantlebury's right here.
Because
it's already in effect. It's in effect.
It's in effect, but he was, in this letter, it tells me that he's exempt from it because of hardship.
He can't determine that on his own.
So I'd say, first and foremost, I think...
I don't know where to go. He wants this money by the first of the month, but he already went up during the moratorium. So what are my options?
So I think, we certainly first and foremost, are sorry you're having to deal with everything you're dealing with. And I think on our part, on balance, and we've heard, so many in the community, we understand there are many individuals such as yourself, and that is why we work so hard to implement this law. That, as you heard from our deputy manager, working as rapidly as possible to get the pieces in place, so that it would provide an avenue for you or others to go to say, look, here's what's going on, here's a violation, how is this kept under control, et cetera. So we're working rapidly. As you know, the law just went into effect, right?
Right.
So of course there's a buildup there. But that is the work that's happening right now. Of course, if you ended up in a legal battle, back and forth with your landlord, that's a piece you'd have to address. But certainly in terms of the parameters and the safeguards we've tried to implement here, it is the board and all the other pieces we were, put into that law that are going to help provide some protections for you. So again, I know the manager and deputy manager are working to do that. I would ask you to make sure the deputy manager has your contact information as well, so he can provide you with the very latest as to what's up and running, what information is collected, and of course, as stuff is more available, can get you information as well.
Okay.
If I
Councilwoman?
may, Mayor, in addition, we still have a landlord-tenant advisory committee, and they can potentially try and provide the text of the law to the landlord, because I believe the text of the law is fairly straightforward on what you described. We obviously aren't going to be able to get into all the details, but if a rent raise was done as it should not have been, they're not entitled to take the full 6%, et cetera. There are provisions. And so maybe afterwards, or you can leave your information, and Brian, are you going to get back to this? Okay, so I hope that's helpful.
Ms. Holland, I suggest you reach out to Montclair Neighborhood Development Corporation, right here, in front of you.
Oh.
Yeah. I think you go to MNDC, right at 228 Bloomfield Avenue, ask for Mr. Dunn. They take cases like yours to get you support until things can steady out, especially if you're working, because they get funds from the county and the state to help individuals with back rent and to help you get on your feet. So, and then they will also advocate for you if you have to go to court. So I definitely suggest you get there. You want the phone number? 973-744-9094. And you should ask for Craig Dunn.
Okay, and it's in Montclair?
228 Bloomfield Avenue, right across the street from the TD Bank, where the Firestone location is.
Mayor?
I'm going to give you, excuse me, I'm going to give you one more thing to write down.
Okay.
The State Department of Community Affairs. If you give me your information, I'll put you in touch with one of the deputy commissioners or assistant commissioners to help you there as well.
Mr. Stafford, you were going
Thank
to
you,
say
sir.
something?
There's also, if you believe that you were, that there was an increase imposed during the moratorium that would therefore be inappropriate, you can avail yourself of filing a complaint yourself. You don't need an attorney. You can bring one, but you don't need one, and that would be done at our county seat in Newark in the special civil part of the Superior Court. Special civil part. They have a specific division for landlord-tenant type claims. And again, I mention it because although you can certainly bring an attorney, you don't have to, and oftentimes folks don't.
And Ms. Holland,
Thank you.
MNDC will help you with their case manager going through all of those steps.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may also, and
Mr. Burke.
this is for anyone out there who's experiencing this, there, as was stated by one of the speakers tonight, there is an anti-eviction act that is subject to supervision or jurisdiction of the Superior Court of New Jersey that Mr. Stafford was just speaking about. You can always avail yourself of legal aid services if you contact either the New Jersey Attorney Board Association or one of the courts. They'll be able to help you, provide you with telephone numbers and addresses, contact information for a legal aid or legal services.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eileen Birmingham. I'm a resident of Montclair. I'm also a mom recovering from COVID who had to find childcare and borrow a car to get here tonight. So honestly, and no offense to you, I'd rather not be here. I'm exhausted, and I hope you can hear me because I'm going to keep my mask on. But I came here tonight because I had no other option to participate in the meeting than to come to the municipal building and sit amongst all of you. I am here to request that the council live stream all of their meetings and allow for virtual public comment. In 2022, we have the technology to easily do this, and this is an important step towards transparency and accessibility for all Montclair residents. I feel so strongly about this that I woke up this morning and decided that I needed to start a petition about it. Courtney Redfern assisted me with this, and within a few hours, we had over 100 signatures. A few of the people who signed the petition left comments as to why, and I will share some with you now. As COVID cases surge yet once again, it is unconscionable to discontinue live streaming and cut off public access. And we need full participatory democracy in Montclair and open access to our elected leaders' decision-making process. Transparency is important, and in the age of COVID, it is quite easy to take simple steps to make the meetings as accessible as possible to the taxpayers of this town. And as a citizen of Montclair who lives in a senior citizen shared housing facility at a time when we are experiencing a resurgence of the COVID virus, I do not relish exposing my fellow residents to contagion as the price of civic participation. It is unreasonable that I be asked to do so. And this decision is extremely inequitable for parents who may need to be home with young children. The fact that meetings will not be streamed also gives the impression that you are hiding. Virtual participation and live streaming needs to stay. And I agree with this petition. I want to make it clear, though, that I do support our Montclair Town Council, and I am happy with most of the way they have voted. So please, make the fairly easy decision to live stream all your meetings and allow for virtual public comments. This is to promote inclusivity for seniors, caretakers, people who are immunocompromised, people who are disabled, people who are working, people who are ill. This is important for everyone. The Montclair Board of Ed has been doing this successfully for months, as has the Town Council of Morristown. Many other towns are still holding virtual meetings as COVID is currently surging. Thank you for your consideration. I believe this is a very easy decision for the council to make. Please live stream the meetings and allow for those who cannot make it down to this building to participate in public meetings. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman, Deputy Mayor Herlock.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I'd ask Mr. Burr and maybe Mr. Stafford, can you all look into this? My understanding when COVID started is that you can't have, by state statute, you can't have a hybrid meeting. So I'd like to know the answer to that as we go forward, and perhaps you can get back to us, Mr. Burr, on that.
Certainly, Deputy Mayor, we'll look into that. And
Yeah.
have an answer for you.
I'll just say, you can look at Morristown's website. They are definitely.
I appreciate that, thank you. I just want to double check the law on that, because when we started, we were told we couldn't. I quite frankly did not want to come back for that very reason, because I knew that this would be a problem, and it has been. So I wasn't in favor of coming back. So I appreciate your concern. I just want to check the law, though, because I know the state of emergency that was enacted by Governor Murphy when this started, there was some legal issues that had to be dealt with, but we'll absolutely look at that website as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Could I just ask, is
Yes.
the Board of Ed actually doing this? Yes. Okay, thank you.
I think that, Mr. Mayor, real quick, I think the council meetings are different than the Board of Ed statutorily. So I'd ask Mr. Burr again to look into that. Thank you.
We got that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deirdre Birmingham. A little weird, but that's my sister. I just wanted to I live at Tuvier Place. I wanted to understand how we missed the boat on recreational marijuana in a town that really needs tax revenue, that has such burden on the homeowners, that we could leave all that money sitting on the table, and we've known about it for so long. It's so confusing to me. So I think I wanted to understand what happened.
Councilman?
I think what I'd like to say in response to that, a few things. I think we had an abrupt resignation of our township attorney who was working on it. We hired an interim attorney, but there was a gap. And I've looked this up, there's 13 other municipalities who did graduate their ATCs to recreational. I think we're one of the only ones who passed the budget, though, before them for the year. And we were also in the thick of focusing on rent control. So I just want people to know that I think, not all of us, but most of us have been in favor of doing this for a long time. But it's been a matter of prioritizing, first of all, making sure the law department was up and running, that we had a budget passed, again, before most of the municipalities, if not all of the ones who converted their ATCs already, and also a very complicated rent control law, passed and put into place. So that's really what I attribute the delay to.
Good evening. I read the article in the Montclair Local about the fire department promotions and the investigation, and it's very concerning in a town that proclaims its values, valuing diversity, claiming that Black Lives Matter, yet we had this very sketchy situation. So I have a couple questions. Did Tim Stafford change the MFD, the Montclair Fire Department, promotion testing protocol? If so, why did he receive a copy of Bruce Morgan's report of the investigation of testing improprieties? Why hasn't a redacted version of the report been released to the public? Is there any truth to the persistent rumor that a partner in the investigating law firm is related to Chief Herman's wife? How was this law firm chosen? Were any of the promotion recipients in Washington, D.C. in January 6, 2021? Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else going to the microphone, I will close public comment. And thank everyone for their comments tonight. Appreciate that. We do have a number of pending ordinances. The first one is pending Ordinance O-22-06, which is a bond ordinance for various capital improvements in the Township of Montclair by the County of Essex in New Jersey, appropriating $7,900,000. Therefore, the authorizing issuance of $7,900,000 bonds or notes, the Township of part for the cost thereof. With that, I'm going to open any public hearing without objection for anyone who wishes to speak to this ordinance. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the hearing. Any comments from my council colleagues? Seeing none, I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Next is Ordinance O-22-07, Native Vegetation Ordinance. I'm going to open the public hearing without objection. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in relation to this ordinance? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on it. Any comments from my colleagues? Councilman Yacobelis?
Thanks, Mayor. I did this a few weeks ago, but I just want to take the opportunity to again thank the Native Plant Society, the Montclair Garden Club, May and Montclair, the Business Improvement District, several arborist organizations across the state of New Jersey, Department of Community Services, our town arborists, and everybody else who contributed to this, and in particular the Northeast Earth Coalition and Jose German, who we have ceremoniously named this after. So just excited. This is a first of its kind in the state of New Jersey. We're getting tons of calls asking us for copies of it so it can be replicated. And what's great is the contagion aspect of it, where We've got private property owners asking how they can participate, the school board asking how they can participate, and other towns in our area in the county asking how they can participate or copy the law, actually. So this notion that we can create these corridors for pollinators and wildlife and restore the habitat is just really exciting to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Next is Ordinance O-22-09, which is the ordinance amending Section 3 of the Bond Ordinance number 20-14, the Township of Montclair in the County of Essex, New Jersey, adopted January 9, 2020, in order to include an additional project, decrease appropriation and authorization amounts for the project description in Section 3A to amend the average useful life. I'm going to open the public hearing without objection. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in relation to this proposed ordinance? Seeing none, I'm going to close the hearing. Any comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I so move.
Second?
Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Next is Ordinance O-22-10, which is an ordinance repealing and replacing Chapter 7, the Business Set Aside Program of the Municipal Code of the Township of Montclair, and hereby renaming Chapter 7 Diversity Inclusion Program. I'm going to open the hearing without objection. Is there anyone who is present who wishes to be heard, in relation to the proposed ordinance? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the hearing. Any comments from my colleagues? Councilman Yacobelis.
Thanks, Mayor. I hate to do this, but I would like to make a motion to table this, and I'll say a few reasons why. We've received notices today from the New Jersey Pride Chamber of Commerce, the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, our People with Disabilities Advisory Committee, all asking us to wait on this because it isn't up to the same standards or consistent with existing municipal rules like this in places like Jersey City and Hoboken, across the state of New Jersey. Doesn't include people with businesses owned by people with disabilities. I believe the definitions in terms of the diversity, we should reference EEO terminology. We should be looking just at equal employment opportunity definitions and terminology for each of these communities, and frankly just copy and paste those definitions instead of trying to define them ourselves. I'm concerned about creating an application process for our affirmative action officer to have to have a separate process when we know that other municipalities in the state of New Jersey simply refer to state or national registration lists for minority women businesses that are owned by minorities and women, or the LGBT community, people with disabilities, veteran-owned, et cetera. So I'd just like us to wait one meeting and to work on this to improve it. I also have a copy of the law with me, and I've got typos and issues with it from throughout, including some of the substantive pieces that I raised. I had hoped to work on this and to not bring it to this point. And the last point I'll make too is I really also want to, and I think we can revisit the 20% number, just given how many groups are included. If we're talking about people with disabilities and veterans and LGBT and Hispanic and Asian and Black and everything, maybe it should be more than 20%, because leaving 80% for, frankly, straight white men is a lot. So I think we can do better than even 20%. So I would just like to take a couple more weeks and make a motion to table this so that we can make some improvements and make it better. And I want to support you on this, Councilor Cummings. I want to see this come to fruition. And I think we are very, very close. And I think a lot of these changes are very reasonable. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion to table. Is there a second?
I'll second it, and I want to just explain that the People with Disabilities Committee, which I'm the liaison to, just wrote to me today asking us to please wait because they want to have some input and they want to be included. As much as I strongly support this and conceptually have always supported it, I want the People with Disabilities Committee to have input and be included. If we're talking about inclusive and diversity, we can't leave them out. There's a lot of people with disabilities. Our advisory committees asked us to postpone and wait, so I'm seconding the motion to table and revisit it as soon as possible and get this other group, this particular group, people with disabilities included. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion to table?
Mr. Mayor, may I have a comment?
Please. Councilman Cummings?
So I shared this ordinance with the council on March 23rd and specifically asked everyone that I gave it to them early enough to read, share with anybody, and come back with questions or answers. So right there, I feel is a little bit disingenuous that when this was introduced, all of a sudden questions were brought up and we had over a month to review. I also have some issues with the reference to Garden State Equality and Pride, because originally I received an email in which we were told, the group that was on that they basically were forcefully asked Councilor Yacobelis not to pass this or support it for the LGBT community. I then called both of them and read the email to them, and both of them said that is an inaccurate statement of what they said. And Mr. Fusiano told me today that he supports this ordinance as long as we are open to amending once the state comes up with its legislation and passes that. I then spoke to Gus from the New Jersey Chamber, Pride Chamber, who said that his concern was that we pass this and then we wait until his concern was that if we pass this and do not wait until the state passes their legislation, we could hurt businesses. So I asked him, when will the state pass it? He said, well, I was with the governor when they actually put this legislation up, and he was told Treasury would not have this probably until August at the earliest. So I said, so you're telling me that we should wait until August when we as a county, as a township, will be putting out a lot of money for bid over the next 3 or 4 months. And he said, well, I understand your point. However, I wish that you would consider tabling it until then. I said, what happens if Trenton does not pass it by then? He had no response. So my concern is that if we do not pass this, we go back to the previous set aside, which does not include the LGBT community, and essentially will only allow for minority-owned businesses, women, and Black and Hispanic Portuguese, which is in that ordinance. So we're going to revert back to a worse ordinance because we have one group that originally had an issue, Mr. Yacobelis brought up, and then the folks from the disability who came up, again, similar to what we discussed last time where we were willing to amend. There's no reason why we cannot have discussions with those individuals and amend, because one of the questions that I raised was what really defines disability for a business owner. And so that is something I think we do need to address. But I want to be very upfront. I think it's rather obvious to me that questions arise very late, and I gave all of you ample opportunity to bring up questions on an ordinance that has been on the books since 1988 and never implemented or enforced. So now we're going to kick the can down the curb further. For what reason? I challenge all of you to tell me right now that you're willing to put this aside. You can always amend, as we said on every other ordinance that we pass. But right now, we are basically saying that we want to go back to the original minority set-aside, which is only 15%. Councilor Yacobelis, you feel we should go higher? That's less. It does not include the LGBT community. This one does. So we want to eliminate and not get them into this as well. So I think that one of the things I also feel as though, and I'll speak on this a little later, we have to be very careful when councilors say they heard things and we don't verify it. So I verified, and basically what Mr. Yacobelis said that 2 individuals told him, they told me they did not say that. So I have concerns about this council making decisions on information that we, as a body, did not look into. So you guys can vote any way you want to vote, but I'm telling you, I think it's a mistake to not pass this ordinance that is,
not because it's my ordinance. It was the very first thing that I looked into when I got on the council. It took 2 years to get it to this point with thoughtful consideration, asking Mr. Morgan, our QPA quality control person involved in this, as well as the former attorney, Ira Karasik, then Attorney Burr, and the deputy manager. A lot of work has gone into this. A lot of thought has gone into this. And I think it'd be a shame because we got emails on one day that we are willing to change, because I believe 2 weeks ago, everyone's supportive. I believe when I sent the email, the two counselors who did respond said, "Oh, I support this wholeheartedly." You had plenty of time from that moment to get all of these questions that you now bring up done. And so that's what I'll say about this.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say, when I said I support this, somebody has written to me today, 3 people from Disabilities Committee, Mr. Fuccio, who used to head it, Wendy, who's the leader now, and Ms. Culkin. They've all asked to please let them have input, which I was not aware of at that time, David. So when you characterize it, I said, yes, I support it. I certainly do support this. All the 22 years I've served, I support making this stronger. But if this group is left out, I can't support it. So I want to have this include their concerns, which are going to take some time. And that's the story. I mean, I got a message today from 3 top leaders of Disabilities Committee, and they've asked us to please wait.
So under
I
these rules, I'm
appreciate that,
gonna
Bob.
I'm gonna allow if anyone who hasn't spoken yet to speak, and then go around to those who have. But before we get into that long debate around it, I would offer that maybe before we get into what it sounds like will be some back and forth on this, would it be an acceptable compromise to delay us one meeting to insert some changes that we see, not waiting till the state potentially comes out with those pieces, so earlier than the delay you're discussing that you heard, and certainly we'd all be mindful of, but a quick moment to any quick cleanup, any additional quick notes of pieces that maybe can be incorporated or not, if we choose not to, but a one meeting wait, and then implement, as you noted, it's been a lot of years in terms of a flawed law on the books. Would that be an acceptable compromise to move us through, take a quick look at it, and then come back in one meeting and move it in one meeting?
I agree with that.
Yeah, if I
I would
could.
agree with that.
Just asking to get us to a place where hopefully we get some consensus and have the little bit of input, but not wait. There's very good points.
I appreciate that,
Just
Mr.
asking
Mayor.
the question.
I appreciate that, but I really want to say, we had this since March 23rd. So to say that we're willing to wait one more time, after we asked last time to ask one more time, I am one who believes it's more important that we get this done. But for some people to say that they support this, and this has been on the books for over 30 years, and to say that they're always supportive of these things and didn't do anything about it, that to me rings hollow. And here's an opportunity going forward for this council to do something for people in this community. As we all sit up here and talk about diversity is important, here's an opportunity to prove it. And so I am very much so that I feel as my statement and my case has been made. You all know how I feel. But please understand that do not come to me or bring forth things at the last minute when you've had over a month to read things and make decisions and bring it to your constituents. If you're a member of the disability, you had plenty of time to take this to them. That either means you didn't or you just overlooked it. So I really think that we need to take into consideration, it's a good lesson that when people bring things to us and ask us to bring back any questions with plenty of time, that they should do it.
Thank you. Anyone who hasn't spoken wishing to speak to this issue? Otherwise, I'll go back around. Yep. Councilwoman Price Abrams, and then I'll come back around to anyone who has.
I want to acknowledge, Councilor Cummings, that you've committed yourself to an important endeavor, and I know that it is shared by really everybody here, and I want to acknowledge that, you know, we don't always read things in a timely fashion as much as we should, and so, you know, that's a comment I'll make for myself. With regard to other elements here, I think to the extent that it's a reasonable request to move it one meeting, I don't know that it's going to change. You acknowledge there's certain funding things that are going to come up, and that will make a difference, or hires that are going to be relevant, and that might make a difference. I think we'll be okay on that front if we punt it one meeting, and I would concur with that as something of a compromise. And again, we won't have everything we might want to know, but I think at that point, there'll be a bright line to cut it off at that point, and I would support, I don't know, that the mayor's, who moved that exactly?
Yeah, I offered it just to see if we could
So I would-
get to a place. And if it were to move, we'd have to maybe ask for an amendment to the motion to table with a specific date of 1 week, but we'll come back to that. Did anyone else have a comment before I go back to Councilman Yakubels? Councilman Yakubels?
Thank you. I do want to just say that when you did send it to me, I immediately sent it to the chamber for their feedback. The head of the chamber's partner was in a car accident and died around the exact same time and didn't get back to me for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and I didn't push it. So I did truly take it immediately and solicit the feedback on it. What I will say is I don't think we have to wait for the state, because the change that would make it consistent with Hoboken and Jersey City would be to say that in order to be a certified LGBTQ-owned business, you just have to be registered with the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. That's what Hoboken and Jersey City do right now. So that's the change that we can make to this law to make it palatable to both the state chamber and the national chamber. And I think that's important. So we can make that change between now and the next meeting. And that would alleviate having to wait until August for the governor's executive order. And just to clarify on that, it is an executive order that went to the Department of Treasury, and they're creating the process. We're not waiting for a piece of legislation to work its way through Trenton. So there's no risk of something passing or not passing. It's an executive order being interpreted by Treasury and put into practice. So I do think there's a path forward on this to get some changes made. And then frankly, we can all decide whether we feel good about them or not and vote accordingly. But I would like to work with you on that to get this done, because I really do mean it when I say I want this. I'm not against you or against this. I want to see this happen.
Anyone else wishing to speak to this?
I'd like to say one other thing, because when something was brought to us just about a month or two ago that was kind of last minute, and I was even hesitant, but I have no hesitation supporting anything that has to do with reparations. I immediately supported it, but it was a last minute thing, and we did do something with it. Sometimes these things are last minute, sometimes they are something that we need more time with. And I think on this, the people with disabilities were really not aware, and I was not aware that this is something they ought to be reviewing. We just got messages today from 3 people who lead that group, who are very important to me at least, and I know a lot of folks here know the 3 people we're talking about. They've asked to please wait till they can have some input. So that's how it happened.
So again, I go back to, we had a first reading on this, and then the day of the vote is when they speak up. But more importantly, they're not even included in the ordinance that we're reverting back to. So nothing was said since 1988, but then all of a sudden today, something is said. And to me, that just rings hollow in terms of all of a sudden I'm interested in something that was read 2 weeks ago and had 2 weeks to respond. Council had over a month. And so now today, everyone all of a sudden has time to send emails, and all the emails come in succession. So, this council is going to act as if when things done, we're going to call people and say, hey, you need to do this to send this in, and we're going to respond to it all the time. It's not a good way to govern. The way you ought to do this is the proper way. And it's not going behind people's backs and having people send in emails to say, hey, fight this because you're not happy with it. Because I'll go back to it. It was here. We had a chance to do something about it. They had a chance to say something. Nothing was said until today. That's just a red herring. So if that's how we're going to operate, fine. Because Mr. Mayor, appreciate your compromise offer. I think based on what I'm hearing from this group, it seems that's the way you all are going to go. And I'll allow you to go that way. I'll go along with it. You said 1 meeting. Last time it was we wanted to wait until the governor passed the legislation, the state. Then it was we wanted to remove LGBTQ from it totally. Now we're going back to this, which if you all are comfortable with, fine. It is a governing body and we have to work as a team, and it only takes 4 votes. But what I'm not going to sit here and allow to be said is that because a group emailed today, had 2 weeks, we had a first reading. That was the reason why we did it. and I'm going to continue to emphasize that, because a lot of times we continue to pass stuff around here where we don't have time to read it, and I went out of my way to make sure all of you had time to. And so to be in this position right now, no, I'm not happy. I'm pissed off, as a matter of fact, especially when you try to come up and say all these people all of a sudden came to you today when they had plenty of time. So that rings hollow to me. No disrespect to individuals. I responded to each of them personally to their response, so they know where I stand. But I'm sitting here talking to my council mates right now, and that's who I need to address that to.
Thank you, Councilman. And I think what I heard in there, and certainly I think we all get, is the passion around this, your passion around this specifically, and also what I heard in there, and I appreciate, is a willingness to find some ground here where we can, and then, by the way, the commitment of action in a week, so we all know to act expeditiously with any pieces and any groups that we want to continue to engage with to try and incorporate in. And as we all know, if something is moved and passed, it can be modified by this body as well moving forward. Okay. With that, I'm going to, without objection, move a slightly amended version to table with the note that it would be brought back up and added to the agenda within 1 week. Is there a second to my amendment?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Next meeting.
That's what I
Sorry.
wanted to
Yes,
clarify
thank you.
your comment. Yeah.
Next meeting, I apologize.
Special meeting.
Yeah,
working
yes,
on it
good.
within the next
Good
week.
point. Listen, yeah, thank you. Next meeting, I apologize. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
Abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the next one is ordinance, make sure I'm here. Okay, Ordinance O-22-11, which is ordinance to amend Chapter 110 of the Code of the Township to modify the number of licenses, evaluation of cannabis application requirements, and license fee schedule and requirements. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak in relation to this proposed ordinance? And there is, so please, yes.
Good evening. I'm Terry Festa, 7 Bell Street. Some of you know me. Others probably know my name from the numerous emails that I've sent over the last few months to the council and the mayor and administration and the clerk and the law department. I apologize for being a bit of a haunt, but this is something that's very important to me. As you also may know, I am a conditional Class 5, Type A in Montclair, retail license applicant at the state level. I have priority review because of the conditional application as well as some other factors, including a 100% woman-owned business. So I'm hoping at the next CRC meeting, which happens on May 24th, there will be a determination. If I'm so lucky as to be awarded the license on that day, a 120-day clock starts. So the time is of the essence for me. And since I want to place the license here in Montclair, I have a vested interest in getting this done as quickly as possible. With that being said, it's commendable that Montclair acted so quickly when it was first brought back in July, and also that Montclair was the first to have an ATC in the whole state. So we're setting the example, and I appreciate that, and I'm proud of that. I also want to make note that I voted for everybody here on this council that I had the ability to vote for, and those that I didn't vote for, I couldn't, but you were my first choice. So I say that not to gain favor, but I do, you laugh, it's true.
We can't use that. We can't use that.
Yes, yeah.
As a note, this works almost as well as bringing nice warm cookies.
Okay, so there you go.
If you bring cookies, you're
I'm just saying
same
that, so
boat.
I'm not here with any political axe to grind. I'm saying this because I'm here because I. Regular? You don't like the infused? We're not allowed to do those yet here in New Jersey. We can't do them yet. No edibles that look like anything good.
Touche, touche.
So I'm here tonight to talk about the amendment to the original ordinance, and I'm just trying to get some clarity around why that was done. I think the original ordinance was the most objective. There was a rubric that gave you quantifiable measurements to really determine amongst all of the applicants, and I'm sure there are many that want to place their license in Montclair. I went through a similar process in Illinois where things kept changing. I had a group of 5 people. We applied in Illinois, and that is still set in litigation today. And as a result of that, I lost all of my investors. So I'm here by myself with the assurances that once I get a license, I can go back to them and hopefully get their financial support. But
you know, I'm saying that only because this is a track record that I've seen. And this is not endemic to New Jersey. It's not endemic to Montclair. This is happening throughout the country. And the state really pushed the burden on to the municipalities, which is somewhat unfair. They did an unlimited licensure, go out there, you know, set it up to really make it successful for the small business owners and not the MSOs that have taken over this industry throughout the country. And it feels right now that with the new legislation that you're putting forward, or the new ordinance you're putting forward, it is not as transparent or as accessible to everybody. The language that was added with sole discretion and taking away all of the weighted measurements for each of the criteria that are a part of this application seems to me that it appears that you're allowing it to be really, I guess, something that would be more, what's the word I'm looking for? I have it here. It's really about, my question is really this. By adding the language that gives the council sole discretion, you're eliminating the weighted averages, and the process is less transparent and more subjective. How does this simplify? I mean, I was told you did this to simplify the process. How does that simplify the process, other than to make it easier to appear, at least, that you're steering it to certain licensees and that it make it more defendable in court? So I would just ask that you look at the ordinance once again and reevaluate how you're going to determine the two lucky entities that are going to be a part of Montclair. I know a part of the ordinance is to add a license because the ATC is going to get one, which is understandable. But there again, we're giving the MSO a head start in this industry that's going to be light years before any of the small businesses get to come in and compete.
Thank you. And I'll just say this specifically, a couple things. You said something very quickly at the end, near the end. One was about, and certainly I'll ask our town attorney to speak to a little bit, but you talked about to allow ourselves the greatest potential for legal defendability, right? And that's absolutely a consideration, right? Some of the best practices that we're hearing, led to some of the changes that you're seeing here, because quite frankly, we do know how litigious, the things can be, and this puts the township and therefore residents and taxpayers in a much stronger position, right, in terms of anything we could potentially face. We have work to still try and infuse and keep in the priorities and the things we would like to see and the things that will be looked at, but move away from specifically, here's numbers that go here, 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 and somebody be able to come in and say, wait a minute, why is my number a 3 and not a 4, or whatever those pieces are, right? So that absolutely was a huge factor, right? So just to be clear. That said, specific to, and then I'll ask Mr. Burr if there's anything he'd like to add, but specific to the additional license added and the advantage or head start, as you're noting, I will just note that what we are looking to potentially approve here tonight is still contingent. If you look, the additional license and opportunity that one of the entities will have to kind of move forward is still going to be tempered by they still have to submit an application, it still has to be reviewed, and we are still going to be looking for those same components that we would look for from all. Allows them to begin that process, but they certainly are subject to the same kind of look that we're gonna take. But it is not lost on us too that they clearly have a proven track record of being able to get, product, to be able to properly serve, so there's some things you do also gain on that side of things, right? So all of those pieces kind of come together. That's the best I can answer, to your specific questions. But we were mindful of, by adding the additional license, that we weren't taking any away from what we talked about and being out there. But, specifically also trying to incorporate a lot of the priorities that we wanted to see still there, but some of the more binding, rubric style pieces that put us at a legal disadvantage, those were, recommended changes. So that's the summary. And Mr. Burr, I'll turn if there's anything else you'd like to add, and then I'll open it to any of my colleagues, and then I appreciate your comments.
Mr. Mayor, I think you summed it up fairly well. My only question to Ms. Vesta is, you had mentioned in the beginning of your statement that you were looking to get a conditional license from the state, and you believe that that was going to be issued on May 24th.
I hoped.
You hoped. And my understanding is that one, you would need a resolution of support in order to start that process from the municipality, and two, I'm not sure when the state is starting to issue licenses to other entities and businesses that are not an ATC or a medicinal dispensary. So I was quite interested into hearing that, and maybe offline, you and I could talk a
I
little
can
bit
talk
more
to you
about
about
that.
that, because I might have misspoke, because
You
I'm
might,
waiting
but-
for a conditional license. Hopefully, with priority review, I'd be in one of the first batches that I hope is at the next meeting. And it's at that point that I have to gain site control, municipal support, and a guarantee of a municipal permit.
Like I said,
In order to
I
apply
understand.
for, right.
When offline, maybe
Okay.
we could talk more about that.
Okay, that sounds great. And the only other thing I would like to say is, even in the, if you look at the criteria, there are points in here that do focus or weight it towards an MSO, specifically talking about having a CBA for 1 year. If this is a new business, how could you have a CBA for a year? That doesn't make sense. The other part, too, is having experience in the industry in New Jersey. That would be impossible because it was not a legal entity, so, enterprise, industry. So those are only my comments, so I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'm in charge for a minute. That's a scary thought. Council colleagues, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Councilor
Thank you.
Abrams.
Acting mayor.
Still deputy mayor, but thank you.
I did want to clarify, if I would, you just made a couple of assertions, and I just wanted to clarify those, if you don't mind coming back up. The last couple of things you just said, can you just confirm, Mr. Burr, what you said was in there or was removed, or just so I understand, like, that you had to, you're saying it was part of our rubric to say that you had experience in the cannabis industry in New
Correct.
Jersey?
Under A, if you look at A, it says that the applicant's owners or principals' qualifications and experience operating in a highly regulated industry, including cannabis, healthcare, pharmaceutical manufacturing, and retail pharmacies, with preference given to operating such businesses within the state of New Jersey, and where the value of the owner's experience shall outweigh the experience of the non-owner principals.
So as, maybe we can get clarification on what's intended. I mean, I think cannabis is one of a list of things. If you happen to be an organization,
Right.
perhaps that was an ATC that would have cannabis experience in New
Right.
Jersey, that would be the only subset of groups that probably would qualify
Correct.
that way?
Right.
But everybody else who has,
Any
the
of these
list
other industries.
thereafter, I think
Yes.
that's,
Yeah,
I just wanted to understand what you said, because it didn't sort of make sense to me.
right.
Was there a second thing you had mentioned a moment ago?
Yes, about having a collective bargaining agreement in place for 1 year in cannabis.
How could you do that if you?
There was some party to a CBA in a cannabis for at least 1 year, You see that?
Tell me what letter you're in.
That is in section C of the criteria. If you look in what has been struck from it, it says applicants or owners demonstration commitment or sufficient experience as responsible employers, defined as the applicant entity being a part to a labor peace agreement, or the applicant entity or its parent company being a party to a collective bargaining agreement in the regulated cannabis industry for at least 1 year prior to application for a cannabis retailer license, in an effort to create a well-paying job, employee benefits. So it does specifically speak to an industry that was really unavailable to most people, other than a very small set, 24 entities in the state of New Jersey.
And it speaks to the future
Well, not with the 1-year prescription on it.
for you.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. It only pertains to those 24 entities that are already doing business in New Jersey.
And for many other
And then-
businesses like her, or
Well, it's
potential people who
specifically
want to
for
be like
cannabis,
her.
yeah.
But it speaks to the future. In other words, if a license comes available.
Correct.
It
If-
speaks to the future.
That is true.
Right, so if other folks can't meet that standard either,
Well,
I mean,
MSOs could.
but
Multi-state operators, those, the big businesses that,
Yeah,
in
this,
this.
so that's only going to be one potentially. In other words, within Montclair, there's one ATC has the opportunity to convert, again, pending their own application. We spoke about that, I guess,
Well,
a moment ago.
other MSOs, I would imagine, could have the opportunity to apply for a license in Montclair. I don't think they're prohibited from coming into town
Okay.
as a newly licensed entity.
So it's one factor among many, I think that's where
Yes,
it says.
I'm just saying
okay.
it's one of
No,
those.
thank you
it's
for
just
pointing it
another
out.
thing on there. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else wishing to speak to this issue, I'm going to close the hearing on that. Thank you very much. And I so move.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings?
no.
Deputy Mayor Herlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams,
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis,
Yes.
Mayor Spiller.
Yes. Next is new ordinance O-22-12, ordinance adopting the redevelopment plan for the Bellevue Theater, and I so move.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Anyone wishing to speak to this from my colleagues? Questions, concerns, comments?
Just want to say I'm very happy to see this good job that Councilor and Deputy Mayor Herlock worked on this for a long time, I know, because the Bellevue was the place that my mom liked to go to all the time and tell everybody, my son's mayor, she got free popcorn. That was not right, what she did. But she loved that place, and she's gone 2 years now, but it's something that, you know, she felt that that was the greatest little theater right around the block from where she lived on Valley Road. So thanks, Bill, for working on this, and let us know when the opening occurs, because what we're doing is getting the area, you know, declared as an area that now we can get this done. I think we couldn't do it, right, Bill, if we didn't get this done. I think this is
Exactly.
right? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. And for those of you that are listening out there in TV land, she didn't really get free popcorn. As your attorney, I'm going to advise you not to comment on that.
She lied.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock.
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams.
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis.
Yes.
Mayor Spiller.
Yes. And certainly, I'll just say with that one, we're all pretty excited. I know speaking with many of the owners there, and we're all excited for the community engagement piece of it, too. I know they've been very heavily into, so excited about that.
Yeah, it'll be a shot in the arm for the Upper Montclair business area, and I want to thank all my colleagues for your support on this. Thank you.
Good stuff. Our next is ordinance O-22-13, ordinance establishing handicap parking space in front of 22 St. Luke's Place, Montclair. So move.
Second?
It's moved and seconded. Any questions, concerns, comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock.
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams.
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis,
Yes.
Mayor Spiller.
Yes. Next, I'm going to move in block items, resolutions 1 through 16. 8 we already acted on, but it's still there, so 1 through 16, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additional holdouts? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock.
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams.
Yes.
Counselor Russo,
Yes.
Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis,
Yes.
Mayor Spiller.
Yes. Next, ordinance to amend 295 of the code to include regulations regarding redirection of stormwater. And certainly here, we all know the issues we've been facing with stormwater and storms and what that looks like. We also understand the flooding and its relation there, but of course, individuals trying to do all they can to kind of protect their property, but some of the challenges that then causes. I think we've all looked at the language here and what this means and why it's here, but are there any questions, concerns, comments? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Did
This
you have your
has
hand?
actually been a long time
And then you-
coming. I want to thank the Law Department for their assistance with this. Mr. Burr spoke with many of you about this issue, actually. I actually put this forward about 3 years ago, I'm embarrassed to say, but it never got past the previous Law Department. And it's been a big issue for a lot of people in town, especially I've heard from a lot of constituents over the years, the fact that, actually during the most recent storm that, had such a devastating impact on Montclair, it was another big issue with a lot of the flooding that occurred, is that we do have situations, unfortunately, where residents are pushing water off of their property onto their neighbor's property. And hopefully, this will help mitigate that issue going forward and give homeowners a recourse that they can use when this does occur. Right now, your recourse is to go to Essex County Superior Court and sue for what us lawyers call trespass and nuisance. Am I correct, Mr. Burr, on that point? And Ms. DeVita? I'm sorry, I didn't see you back there behind the podium. I'm in a bad spot here. But that's part of the issue, and hopefully this will alleviate a lot of those concerns going forward. I'm glad that we finally got this one out and on the books, and I thank the legal department. I like my thank my colleagues as well. You've all played a big role in this as well, and that's all I'm going to say, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Councilwoman Price Abrams?
Thank you, Mayor. I also agree this is very necessary. I didn't know, Deputy Mayor, how long it had been in the works in some sense, but I just know that very recently I toured through with a bunch of residents, part of the areas in the third ward that have been just part of the most devastating areas of flooding when we have even the most simple storm anymore. It's just, it's really, dynamics are changing, whether, I don't know, saturation, different sort of storms, flash storms, but part of the challenge that folks are facing has to do with these very issues of who built something higher, and the next thing you know, it's, the streams are, you know, it's really quite problematic. And I think the other thing that we are talking about doing, and I'm not quite sure where it is in the process, is that we would be doing some kind of surveying and evaluation with some money that we put aside in the budget. So I do hope that we can all be supportive of the staff who are going to be implementing that and make sure that that's getting done in a timely way. It's going to take, I don't know, the year or whatever it's going to take, that we could then make recommendations for how we take this further. So thank you for this step.
Well, absolutely, and a shame, but it's certainly the case where these are going to be conversations more and more frequently. Councilman Yacobelis?
Thank you, Mayor. So, happy to support you on this, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. So I just want to add, I think we also need to look seriously at adopting maximum impervious surface standards for all zones, which is something that the planning board has recommended. So if we could, we've had a million things to do, but I'm going to start to ask you guys to work with Ms. Talley and her office on that. Right now, for example, in the R1 zone, which takes up most of the land area in Montclair, we only address principal structures and not things like patios, pools, sheds, or other secondary structures on the property. We should also revise our zoning to allow permeable and porous surfaces for driveways and parking lots in all zones, but excluding gravel, which actually ends up washing into storm drains and clogging them. We actually have to clarify that in the law. We have to ensure that we create and maintain our records on properties located within special flood hazard areas so that we're protecting new construction, but also adjacent properties as well, which we're doing in part with this. There's some money in the bond ordinance that we passed tonight for engineering work in terms of the culvert that goes under South Park and Bloomfield Avenue, which is a really big deal. It's been a problem in Pinch Point. Those businesses in the area have flooded multiple times over the last few years, so it's exciting that we're going to put some money into the, I'll call it the R&D, the research and development. I know Burnside, obviously, is a problem point. Cross Street, where we visited last week, is a major pinch point. Been up over by Yannicott Brook Park. So doing that survey work is really, really important, and thank you, Mrs. Stafford, for having Mr. Bianco and Mr. Wood and Mr. Roberto join us for that walkthrough with residents. So we took away from that some key next steps. And lastly, I'll just say, I also think something that we should consider seriously studying, and I know some of us have had this conversation, is whether or not a stormwater utility makes sense for Montclair as a way to potentially finance all of this work over time, because we're talking about $1.52 million per culvert, which I don't know how to do that unless we figure out another source of revenue or have our grant writers doing an even better job than they're already doing with getting money. So thank you.
No, thank you. And it should be noted, too, that utility would potentially allow us to incentivize as well as collect some of the dollars that could do this work. So thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move that on the next agenda moving forward. Next, we have Resolution R-22-10. I'm sorry.
Actually, Ms. Mayor, my apologies for interrupting. Would it be possible to move it since the season? I know we're trying to avoid that, but this one is kind of...
As you heard me say a lot, Mr. Deputy Mayor, it's 4 votes at any time. I appreciate the...
Well, then, Mr. Mayor, I got him. No.
We do always try to put things forward as in advance as possible, but sometimes things are pretty straightforward and people are comfortable with it. So it's the 4 votes. But absolutely, we can move this, and it is just the second hearing. We'd have to notice and take all those steps, Madam Clerk, correct? So just noting that as we move this one, that kicks the process into place.
Correct.
So with that, I will move an ordinance to amend Chapter 295 of the Code of the Township of Montclair. And probably if I look back, I could tell you what ordinance number that is, but Madam Clerk, I'm going to let you fill that in appropriately.
O-22-14.
I move O-22-14.
Mr. Mayor, I will second that.
It's moved and seconded. I think we've
Thank you.
spoken to it already. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Counselor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yakubellis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Thank you. Next is Resolution R-22-110, which is a resolution issuing conditional Class 5, Category A cannabis retail license to Ascend, and I so move.
Second?
It's moved and seconded, and I think as spoke to during the hearing on the last ordinance that we did here, this is a conditional Class 5, Category A, which again would be conditioned upon eventually submission of their application, review of that application, submission of all the appropriate paperwork, fees, et cetera, and then, of course, review by this body and final approval by the manager. So all those things are in place, but it does allow the process to move forward. Any other questions, concerns, comments from my colleagues?
Yeah, good.
Councilwoman Price Abrams, and I see Councilman Cummings, and did you have your hand? Councilman Yakubov? No, maybe, okay. Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Hey, thanks, Mayor. I just want to make sure I understand, and I know you just said it, but maybe quickly from understanding it, and I need to sort of hear it slower. So this relates with particularity to Ascend, given that they are, having the opportunity to convert. They're differently situated than the other potential applicants. So we provided them last meeting with a resolution that permitted them to go to the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, which is meeting on the 24th. I didn't hear otherwise. I expect that they might have gotten onto that agenda. So they'll come back, and maybe it's Mr. Burr who can just clarify the procedure. They'll come back with that with a conditional approval. Ascend will be going to the Cannabis Regulatory Commission to get what would be conditional. We provided them the resolution that allowed them to go to there. They'll have a conditional approval.
Conditional state license, yes.
A conditional license, state license. And then they still can't begin process of anything until we go through a review process. Now, I know we are owing this application to everybody interested, and so at the same time, they'll be made available to everyone, or that's the plan, is that it'll be actually.
Yeah, so I think the key pieces are the therefore. So the Ascend is hereby granted a conditional Class 5 Category A retail license to operate in retail location subject to the issuance of the Class 5 cannabis retail license by the state. That's what you just noted and Mr. Burr just spoke to. And submission of a completed application, that would be our level then, application and associated fees to the Township of Montclair in accordance with sections, all of them listed there in all of our ordinances. And then this other key piece, be it further resolved that the said conditional license shall be deemed permanent license and become effective upon the satisfaction of the above requirements herein and approval of the township manager. So it's still got those pieces that they're going to have to submit that application, us approve it, and the manager sign off on it.
Okay, but conditional is different than provisionary or something. They can't take the thing they get from the state and begin operating. They have to go through the rest of our process. That's what this says.
That's correct.
I literally just want to make sure that's on the record and I understand it, and the
Yes.
people listening understand it.
Yes, that's correct. So they will get their state license once if this resolution is passed tonight. They will begin their application process. They can start it.
Well,
obviously,
it's not out yet.
Well, they have to be provided with the application, but they have been told that they can take a peek at our ordinance, which lists what the application will look like, so they can follow those guidelines and start putting their documentation together. Then they need to, once we give them the application, they will be able to submit their documents to the township clerk, which will then be vetted through the appropriate departments, zoning, legal, manager's office, and finance. And then will be passed along back to the township manager. He will make sure everything is done correctly. It will be passed to the council to make sure they understand what's in it. And then, as long as everything's completed and satisfactory to the council, and then approved by the manager, they'll be ready to start selling cannabis.
Thank you. So that's Ascend, and every other interested party who wants to apply, at the same time that the application can be made available to Ascend, it will be made available to anybody else interested.
That is up to the EDC when they are ready to put
Yeah,
the
and
application.
the answer will be yes. Everyone will have a chance at that, yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah,
think it's
so-
very important that they go out together, that everyone else feels the opportunity to get in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We meet on Thursday.
Okay,
At
well,
4:30.
Got my thoughts, thank you.
So to be clear, 20 days from now, the application's given to everybody at the same time.
20 days from now.
20 days, if this passes now.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, the ordinance already passed, we're done. 20 days from now, the application goes to everybody, including Ascend. And on Thursday, EDC is finalizing the application.
We have to vote on this.
Right, this is the resolution. Any other questions, concerns, comments on this resolution? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Cummings?
No.
Deputy Mayor Herlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Next is Resolution R-22-111, a bill list resolution. Councilwoman Schlager, would you please?
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas invoices against the Township of Montclair in favor of the following persons for the amounts set opposite their respective names have been received, duly audited, and found correct. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Township of Montclair and the County of Essex that said invoices be and they are hereby ordered paid, and that checks be drawn by the Finance Department to the order of such persons for the amounts respectively and hereinafter stated on the schedule attached hereto and made a part hereof. This bill list is dated May 17th, 2022, for the amounts of $13,137,842.10, and I so move.
Second?
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Councilman Yacobelis.
Just two, Mr. Manager, on page 21, Colonelli Brothers, that's the first item there, $7,982, emergency storm sewer repairs, which if you happen to know, and if not, email's fine to follow up with. I was just curious.
That was a storm sewer collapse in April of this year.
That's what I thought, okay. And then, sorry, page 21, actually, there's two page 20s, 21s, and 22s. S&Ps for under parking capital, PO 220-1207, $14,962, analytical services for Go Bonds. Just what that is.
That's the Standard & Poor's fee for its analysis in connection with our bond rating for the general obligation bond sale.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Thank you. Next is Resolution R-22-113, which is a resolution authorizing the deed of easement for two encroachments by 17 Watchung Plaza to township property. I so move.
Second. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, concerns, comments? Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Thanks, Mayor. Just, can we identify what are those properties, like who are the owners of them? Are they businesses or residents? Or
It's go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it's a business. It's the Chase Building.
Oh,
The
I
Chase
see.
Bank Building, the
oh.
corner of Fairfield and Watchung Plaza.
Gotcha, okay.
There's an 80-year-old easement that has been in effect of 6 inches, literally.
And we're feeling generous about the whole thing.
Encroachment, sorry, of an encroachment. And so this is a new,
Okay, thank you.
an updated resolution.
My understanding is because some of the financials needed this officially noted.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Madam Clerk.
Counselor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes, thank you. Next is Resolution R-22-112. This is a resolution authorizing executive session without the public being permitted to attend in accordance with NJSA 10:4-12B. The subject is litigation and personnel, and I so move. So with the second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right, we will be moving into executive session, please. Thank you. All right, thank you. With that, we will come out of executive session. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We do have an item for outside of executive session here. This is a resolution authorizing the construction of skatable structures at Rand Park. Whereas the engineer has approved the plan and design for this, be resolved the council of the Township of Montclair does authorize the manager to allow for the installations and structures. I so move.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any questions, concerns, or comments from my colleagues?
Just,
Councilman Yacovelis?
So I just want to be clear that, and I think I'm speaking for a majority of us, our intention, manager, is to give you the authority to make this happen, in terms of giving Fifth Pocket the permission to construct the sculptures at this point. So I think we're just hoping that we've done multiple resolutions now for this site with the intention of building these sculptures that are being funded by a third party. I think this, hopefully, as far as I understand it from the law department, checks the final two boxes. I think there's a pending agreement that has to still be signed. But our intention here is with this, that you're empowered once that is signed, now that we have sealed plans approved by the township engineer, that you can execute, that it doesn't have to come back to the governing body.
And that was, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Sure. No, I was going to say, any other questions, comments?
Oh,
or
yes,
anything?
thank you,
Please.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
And I just want to confirm what Councilman Iacobello said about funding by third parties. Is that correct? So
Yeah, there's no cost to us for this other than the additional insurance.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
So,
Councilman Cummings?
I had the same question I think that Bill had. So at this point, there's no extra cost for us. So what is this execution and donation agreement between the township and Skate Access? What does that refer to?
It's indemnification. It's us indemnifying
So that
Skate
they have-
Essex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Herlock?
Yes.
Counselor Price Abrams?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Yacovelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes, and certainly to point a little bit of the financing, and know we're all encouraging and thankful that as much external dollars as can be raised, that helps move the project along faster, and of course get something larger and better done as well. And we appreciate the efforts of everyone out there, working hard to do that, and we know the taxpayers appreciate it as well. So, thank you for that. I will go around the horn. Mr. Stafford, anything?
No, sir. Mindful of the hour, I have nothing to add.
All right. Deputy Manager?
No comment, Mayor.
No comment. All right, good. I know that was a unique way of answering. Yes, I kind of got that's something different. Mr. Attorney, Township Attorney,
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Quickly. We're 21 days from the primary election. Today was the last day to register to vote, to participate in that election. The clerk's office was open until 9:30 p.m. to receive voter registrations. But you still have until 11:59 to do it on the state website, should you choose. And all this information's on the website. Thank you.
I love it. Timely. 11:59. There we go. Good thing we had one of our really short meetings tonight, so you can get that in. Okay. Great. All right. I'm going to go. Let's see. Assistant Town Attorney. Anything from the good seats? Okay. Thank you. All right. I'll go down the horn. Let's go this side. Councilman Cummings.
Yes, Mayor. Thanks a lot. I'd like to acknowledge the Montclair African American Heritage Foundation golf tournament was held yesterday, and it was in honor of Bruce Taylor. Last year, Bruce passed away, was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago, and member of the 1965 and 64 state championship team. True Mountie guy who, any sport, he was there, played lacrosse, wrestling, attended Alabama State, just a guy who didn't have anything bad to say about anybody. And the tournament sponsored a scholarship in his honor for a Montclair High School student, $1,000 a year for 4 years. We had the first student recipient was there yesterday. He was a very nice young man. And the tournament itself also provides scholarships for students from Montclair High School to participate in the Business Entrepreneur Learning Academy at Montclair State, where freshman students are allowed to participate in three two-week programs at the Feliciano School of Business. And in that program, the students actually take on a case study of something in the township, and they really learn about the finance world. I personally give it a lot of kudos because it led my youngest daughter to have her interest in finance, and she's an economics major now at Spelman College, and will be working for the Federal Reserve in San Francisco this summer. And it all started the year that she spent at, the 2 weeks that she actually spent with the Feliciano School of Business. So it's a great program, and Kevin Richburg actually started it, and I think some of you may have been exposed to the program yourself. The other thing I want to talk about next year, yeah, well, everyone knows his son Brandon Taylor, who, one of our up-and-coming cops one day, as former Mayor Russo would say, probably somebody who has all the potential to be a great chief one day. I want to also say that next year's tournament will be putting forth the scholarship in the name of Albert Pelham. So it's one of the things that I do take on as co-chair, and I look forward to really coming out there and raising and recognizing Mr. Pelham. And then I would also like to talk about this conversation of our meetings being streamed and residents being able to call in. So today several people came and mentioned that, and what ends up happening is after public comment, everyone leaves. So it's not really about coming to see us do the business of the township, and because that's one of the things that we really don't do that till after public comment. And I say that because I think we have to be transparent, yes, but every counselor here, you can reach us by email, by phone, and also, come to this meeting and address anything that is bothering you or anything that you want to talk about, such as the folks who came tonight to discuss the rent control ordinance. So I think at the end of the day, for me, I do stand by the fact that I think these meetings that we are now in public should remain as they have in the past. And I too, like Councilman Deputy Mayor Herlock, I said I was against coming back to this meetings in this format because at the time COVID numbers were rising again. However, we decided to come back, and so now therefore we have to make sure that we're understanding that it's not a good time. I still don't think it's a very good time to be here in public like this because these numbers just don't, just doesn't add up to this level of discourse in the way that we're doing it right now. Because the bottom line is, and I asked, the manager to ask Keith Costello to give us an idea, so he said the health number's okay and we could do it, so we're here. But I think the way we're proceeding allows us to do what we need to do in the best way. And the last thing I'm going to comment on is June 11th at Bullock School, several former Montclair students are going to be honoring Mr. McGrath. Mr. McGrath was a gym teacher at Hillside School who was famous for the game American Ball. So we're going to have an American Ball tournament inside Bullock's Gymnasium. And Mr. McGrath, if you attended or your children attended, was just an incredible gym teacher on the lines of Mr. Gentle at Nishawayne School, who's really started crazy gymnastics program, so much so that I remember second grade participating in our play where I first got to roll over from the back in my position. He taught me how to do flips and things like that. So, but Mr. McGrath, I can only say we're going to come out strong for him, and if any of you guys want to come and play some American ball, please, it'd be a great chance for me to throw the ball at you and see if you can catch it. I would love the opportunity, especially after tonight, that you guys would all feel it, trust me. So, I will, trust me. But no, I saved Mr. McGrath for last because when we talk about educators in this township, oftentimes we think about math, science, English, language arts, social studies. He was a gym teacher. And in that gym class, he probably created more friendships through the game of American Ball as well as his annual wrestling tournament. And it was just truly impactful to really think about it. I was in his class in 1979 to 1980, and I'm still excited about him. He's on He's on Facebook, and whenever someone posts something about him, he responds. He is just what you want in a educator. And so I look forward to that opportunity to play with him and hit him, and then also some of you, I'll say that again. But at the end of the day, I think that tonight was a council meeting that we were able to get some things done, but I hope that moving forward, we do really consider when we do ordinances that we do them properly and that we follow the procedure that is established, because we end up in situations where we move some things and then questions come, and we end up in situations we should not be if we just take our time. And I meant to speak this long tonight, so I'm not going to apologize for the length, but I will say that I look forward to our next meeting, and hopefully we will pass the DIP ordinance so that we can start doing and live up to the creed that Montclair claims in terms of being fair and diverse to all people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Thank you, Mayor. Truth be known, I left the list of things I wanted to comment on my desk at home, but a few things that I do want to touch upon with the few moments here. Can't decide if I want to start or end with, but Bob, I'm sitting next to you. My mom's special milestone birthday. My mom turned 80 the other day, yesterday, Monday, and so as I say happy birthday, Alice Price, out there for whoever might be listening. I'll play it for her later. But I said to her, she may be 80, but she will always be young. So she's a great spirit. We're celebrating with her this coming weekend. I wanted to acknowledge Jane Eliasoff, who's the longtime executive director of the Montclair History Center. I just learned today that she's moving on, and she's made a great contribution, a lot of innovative programming there. So I know that that's a position that they're looking to replace, but just want to wish her well and appreciate her. I want to make note of, we did a moment of silence earlier, appreciate that the issue, the horrible violent attack in Buffalo, and there was another one like a day later, and I forgot where, but there were probably many others that maybe you didn't hear about with California. The point is, it's a scourge of guns, it's a scourge of, mentality and intolerance, and I don't know what motivates people to be this way. I guess we have some theories, but as I offered in my remarks, there's no community that's, when I was reading the proclamation about the Jewish Heritage Month, there's no community that's not been somehow a target, and we seem to have gotten far away from our most core values, and honestly, I know we spoke about this 2 weeks ago when we were last here. It was the night we first were just learning, I guess, about where the U.S. Supreme Court may go on abortion in terms of depriving people of their ability to have bodily autonomy, and it's just there's so many things to work on, and so I guess this is a ramp up to maybe what the clerk just shared about elections. I know tonight might be the first of the primaries, certainly in our service area where I work by day. Pennsylvania had a primary election today. Other states will all be coming on in the coming weeks as we build toward November. Other states have to redo theirs because of the redistricting maps. But this is an opportunity, I guess, we all just call upon people to get out there and vote your beliefs, your conscience, and candidates who can best represent you. Lastly, I just want to also comment on this grappling with participatory democracy that we've been discussing. Can people be present? If they can't, can they participate in a different way? I learned from others who've served before on this council that the alternating conference meetings are meant to have a different feel. They're meant to have a more small room feel, even if they are publicly open, of course. And I think that could be a valuable thing for a council as ours. We haven't had that much time to be sitting in a room together. This is the second time, apart from the very first day. I think there's a value there. So I think it's something to grapple with, and I'll be considering what I think is the most appropriate for us, and I hope everyone else will as well, and we'll somehow land with whatever's available. I think there are challenges on the technology side that we've talked about from the beginning, but I think there's more to unfold there. I guess the last thing I wanted to mention is back to hate crimes and such. We have that $450,000 grant that we secured through our grant writers, and Lieutenant Williams, I believe, is heading up this hate crimes task force, and I know, Mayor, we talked about trying to bring him in, and maybe we can have him present to us and therefore the community at an upcoming meeting soon. That's all for tonight.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Russo.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Just a couple of things. Never got, we never had an actual broadcast where we could actually welcome him because for 2 years we've been doing everything remote. But President Jonathan Capel is the new president of Montclair State. Great magazine article at the Montclair State University, which includes all the work he's trying to do to bring the community and the university together. And then there was also an article in that issue of our great Wendy Lacey with the idea of including people with disabilities and everything. So there was a great accolade to her. I just want to welcome the president of Montclair State, and hope we can keep partnering with him with the university. We had a nice event on Saturday, which Councilor Iacobellis and I attended. It was the Essex County Park System 125th anniversary in Olmsted. The Olmsted Park, the designers were honored, and I want to thank not Freeholder anymore, but Commissioner Brendan Gill, or commissioners now, County Commissioner Brendan Gill, for being there with County Commissioner Pomaris and County Commissioner Seabold. They all helped dig the area that we planted a tree in, so it was a great event at Anderson Park. I want to compliment Jill Hirsch, who's the director for Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill. She's being honored for Jewish History Month this week, actually, at Essex County. Commission is also going to be recognizing her and Rabbi Max Edwards. But Jill Hirsch is a Montclair resident, and I thought it would be good to just give her a shout out and say thanks for all her hard work, especially when we should be recognizing Jewish History Month, because what's going on again, and I want to just conclude with this, is so horrific. It's anti-Semitic. There's there's racism. There's anti-Asian, and by the way, this weekend, correct me if I'm wrong, is AAIP, the Lantern Festival for the Asian community. So please come out this weekend for that. But we have so much to be thankful for that Montclair does, even though we may argue among ourselves and may have conflicts. We try to work it all out eventually and embrace each other. Last night, I was very privileged to go with my wife to the African American Heritage Foundation event. And my wife, Christine, knows everybody because a lot of folks used to work at Bell Atlantic, where she worked for 30 years. So we had a wonderful session with Joyce and her husband, who moved to North Carolina, but they used to work with my wife, and so did Harriet, whose sister was there, who's now they used to be in your neighborhood, Lori, but they're down in North Carolina also. But they all came back for this great event. Lenny Coleman was there, but I want to tell you all how this was all put together really by one person who really stands out. Everybody felt appreciative of his effort. They felt that he did a great job, was a great sense of humor, gave me and my wife a shout out and a hard time. But my wife, Christine, loved being at this event at the Glenridge Country Club. And this event was for African American Heritage Foundation, leading up to our African American parade. And I want to thank Councilor David Cummings for what he did. He had a great event. My wife and I enjoyed being there. We contributed, and we're like a reunion with so many great African Americans from Montclair who were sitting with us for hours. We didn't golf, but there was a great event that David Cummings put together. So David, thank you very much. Thank you, man.
I appreciate that, Bob, but I'd have to say the help that I got from the committee, particularly Weetah McPherson and Kathy Smith and Bruce's wife, Carmen, could not have been done without their support and their effort. I had the easy part, trust me.
Councilor, just one more thing. I also want to add that I believe Olmsted also designed Glenfield Park.
Yeah, a lot of parks, but Glenfield's another one.
Councilman Iacobellis.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll be brief.
Had the pleasure of attending Ladies' Night on behalf of Deputy Mayor Herlock and us. Upper Montclair Business Association last week joined Councilor Price Abrams for the Attorney General, did a good speech and Q&A at Temple near to Mead. Deputy Mayor and I and Councilor Schlager attended the opening of Ride It Cycle Studio, a new business in Upper Montclair that we're excited about. Councilor Russo mentioned already the Olmsted Park celebration that we joined Commissioner Gill, Commissioner Siebold, Commissioner Palmaris at. And then just coming up this week, we do have a Safe Street Zoom that the MPD is hosting with Bike and Walk Montclair that I know Councilor Schlager had instigated. That's Thursday night. AAPI, as mentioned, has their Lantern Festival this Friday night at Edgemont Park. The Montclair Eco Fair is this Saturday at St. James Church in Upper Montclair. And I know a few of us are also attending the Eagle Scouts ceremony at Union Congregational Church on Sunday. So packed weekend, lots going on in town. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's go with Deputy Mayor Herlock.
Did you forget my name, Mr. Mayor?
I didn't, but it threw me off with Councilwoman
I will
Schlager.
explain in a moment.
Yes, okay.
Councilwoman Schlager had to get home to handle an issue, so she regrets that she wasn't able to stay. But thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick, too. A couple of things in addition to the events that my colleagues, Councilor Jacobellis had mentioned. Today is actually National Police Officers Memorial Day. And I'm sure my colleague, Mr. Russo, Councilor Russo knows this. John F. Kennedy actually declared this May 15th, 1962, the very first one. This year we're celebrating it today, Tuesday, May 17th. We have a bunch of Eagle Scout ceremonies coming up, also at St. James Church as well. Literary Festival was a lot of fun, went to a couple events there, was very honored to deliver the proclamations to the ambulance unit on behalf of my colleagues. The cleanup day in the First Ward was a big success. Thank you all who came out and participated. And we enjoyed the plant sale at the the Presby Iris Gardens, actually, as well. So a lot going on in Montclair. Speaks again to the resilience of our community, and we will continue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And I'll just quickly say in closing, first, as we noted and at the beginning of this meeting, the tragic events that we see all too often, the violence, it's all we can do to try and keep pushing forward with ways to address this, both here and certainly when we focus on hate crimes and other pieces, and also more broadly, in other states and certainly the nation. As frustrating, depressing at times as Councilman Russo notes this can be, the only option we do have is to keep pressing forward and to try and make a difference in some way. So we will continue to do that. And certainly Montclair has always been at least an example of people coming together. Do also want to note, along those lines, yes, this Friday coming up is the Lantern Festival. It was a great event last year. I'm sure it'll be even expanded this year. So certainly, hopefully, people have an opportunity to come to that as well. There continue to be store openings. I'm looking forward to World Flats, a new restaurant opening up that looked pretty tasty. So I'm excited for that one for sure. We know we have a lot going on, upcoming soon as well. We've got certainly what we always do at Edgemont with Memorial Day. We've got Pride events coming forward in the near future. It's exciting in ways and certainly also important in ways in what we recognize and pay tribute to. And the last thing I'll say is just that I think tonight was a really good example of the impact that can be had, as we heard from one of our residents impacted by rents and what that means in terms of the ability to be secure in your housing. And as much as we do hear the differing opinions, and we do value them and appreciate everyone coming and speaking to them, but on balance, and certainly appreciate my colleagues' work, because at the end of the day, trying to help a resident that's just faced with a situation that is just, probably what many people can't relate to. But when you see these rising rents that are out of control, not the ones who are within the parameters defined by the rent control ordinance, but the ones who are charging way more than that, it really speaks to why we had to take action, why we did, and why we are so committed to making sure that we help our residents here in town and for the affordability of those who want to be here in the future. So with that, I commend all my colleagues for the work there, and we will again move forward as rapidly as possible to get that implemented. With that, I thank everybody and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.